Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 428 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And it has been a very busy news day today.
And it really has. It's been an impressive news day, of course, around the entirety of the world. But one thing that we have been seeing inside of Russia is that it appears that the social and cultural pressures within the Russian Federation, while largely kept under the surface, are starting to boil over and are being noted directly by Prighozin, and also we can see that for the first time ever, forced mobilizations are making their way into the very heart of Moscow, something we have never seen over the course of this war. But before we get into any of that news, there is loads of news to cover today from just about everywhere inside of Ukraine that is also worth covering. Starting off down in the Mykolaiv area, we did see that just around, I believe it was around 8 hours ago, a Caliber missile hit into the center of Mykolaiv. It appears that air defenses, unfortunately, were not able to intercept the missile, and so it exploded in the middle of the city. You see the explosions right out there. It appears that 2 Calibers actually detonated on the city. We do not know what kind of damage they've caused and how many casualties may have been created due to these missile strikes. It's very unfortunate to see, and hopefully the Ukrainians can hold accountable the units that fired off those missiles and the government that has led them into this war for 428 days. We're going to be moving on from that little bit of news, where we also saw that a Russian artillery piece, a 2S1 howitzer, on the other side of the Dniprovska Gulf, which is very hard for me to pronounce for some reason, was destroyed today after it hit a small town here on the northern side of the Dniprovska Gulf. And so we can see this SPG, the 2S1, being destroyed right here. And we can hear the chat music right there playing. And we can now see the camera looking into the trees. We can see the 2S1 right there, the Russian one that fired at the Ukrainian village. 5 minutes later, the SPG has been hit and it is up in flames. Good to see that the Ukrainians are always getting reprisals against the Russians for attacks upon civilian population centers, like the small village that the Russians fired at from the southern end of the Dniprovska Gulf. With that, we're now going to be moving on out of the southern end of Ukraine, as we wanted to cover that action first, because it appears that the Russians attacking civilians in the Kherson area, or the Mykolaiv area more so, has started to become a reoccurring theme. Unfortunately, the Ukrainians in this area are working their hardest to either try and get revenge for the attacks, or to counter them and make sure that they're no longer possible. Moving directly into Russia, however, we got a small clip today that is very interesting in its own right. While only a 12-second long clip, this clip shows more to us in 12 seconds than hours of footage could show us about how badly the Russians are doing in this war. Of course, we've gone over the graphs and information many times throughout this war about how the Russian, I guess you could say, mobilization is broken down by province, and it appears that some of the most heavy-hit provinces in terms of conscription or mobilization are the areas close to Chechnya and Dagestan here in the south near the Caucasus Mountains, or the Caucasus Mountains. And all the way out here near Tanatuva are the 2 areas that are hit the heaviest when it comes to conscription and forced mobilization. Moscow and St. Petersburg are the 2 parts of the country that are almost not affected at all. This is where most of the elites in the country live, and so it would make a lot of sense for a large amount of people to not be mobilized in these areas, and if the mobilization reached these 2 major cities, the situation in Russia could easily start to deteriorate quite rapidly, as a matter of fact, because it's never made it there for those reasons. But today, for the first time ever on film, we saw somewhere in the middle of Moscow a forced mobilization of a man who was sitting in his car, and the commissar came up along with some help and dragged the guy out of his car and is going to be sending him into the Russian army by the end of this day. Here's the clip. When you see the guy trying to resist, and when you see the police and the commissars trying to drag the guy out to put him in the military, you see him continuing to try and drag the guy out. It appears that he's holding on to something inside the car. He's not giving up. You can actually see that someone's inside the car that may be helping him. And that's the end of the clip, but a little picture or a piece of what has been going on in Moscow now. Now, of course,
Man, they're just snatching people up like thugs off the street.
they really are. They're snatching them up like they're criminals, and then they get thrown in the Russian army. It's really insane when you look at it on the surface level, and it's even more insane when you think that this has not happened throughout the course of the war in Moscow, inside of Moscow. This is something you would see happening in a place like Chechnya or Dagestan or somewhere similar, maybe even Yekaterinburg or Ufa, if you really want to get on as close as possible to a place like Moscow or St. Petersburg. But never before have we seen the mobilization and the forced conscription of citizens ever happen within the city of Moscow like this. This is the first video clip we've ever seen of such a thing, and this is certainly going to start causing the large majority of Russians, around 15 to 17% of the entire Russian population lives within the cities of Moscow and St. Petersburg alone. This may cause them to start getting into a little bit of a stir, and considering that the Russians are running so low on manpower that they had to resort to such desperate measures to get any kind of manpower for this war, it shows that they may be in very tough straits, and it may be that the Russians will not really be able to survive this war much longer. And based off of what Prighozin said, which of course we'll be getting to here very soon, it also appears that he believes that the Russian Federation, as it is going to collapse here in the near future. And while we heard that a little bit in a clip from Prighozin yesterday, he went into great detail about it today, and also his anger in general at the entirety of the Russian Federation. It seems that they have a very unhappy PMC leader down there in Bakhmut right now, and that might come back to bite them here in the future if all of the chips line up right. Anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on out of Russia and on into our location unknowns, just showing some various clips from around Ukraine. First off, we saw some Ukrainian Marines crawling through the mud. I don't know if this is part of training or punishment, because this appears to be the side of a dirt road, so I feel like this isn't necessarily a training ground. Maybe it is, but we can see these Marines having to trudge through this mud puddle as the cameraman kicks up water towards their face as they continue to drag on through. We see the guy still carrying on along. And we can now see the next guy coming up in the group. And we can see that he's also getting some mud kicked up in his face. And I guess you could say that this guy isn't putting dirt in their eyes, he's putting mud in their eyes. But still, very interesting to see. I don't know the exact reason or the purpose behind this. The caption says that it's a part of practice or training, but I've never really seen training like this occur on a road that just has some water on the side of it. But maybe they're just doing it for the hell of it. I don't really know. With that, we're moving on from that clip and on to our next one, where we saw that a Ukrainian BMP crew got a Snickers break, because everyone knows you're not you when you're hungry, and especially not in a war. And so we can see these guys handing off a box of Snickers to this BMP crew. Also, we're going to have to mute that, but we can see it's a BMP-1. They pull alongside, and we can see him holding up the Snickers box. The driver grabs it and then hands it back to his commander, and then the car drives on. Now, if this is not product placement, I don't know what is. Also, some of you may say, hey, this is an old video. It's not. We've actually seen many similar videos like this throughout the entirety of the war, although they got a lot more rare in the prior months. This one is brand new, however, because we can see that the vehicle has cross-identifying marks, which the Ukrainians never really had until about late last year. So this is brand new. And
you know they got to feel good getting a whole box of Snickers after eating MREs and everything. Like, that's got to feel good.
Yeah, you know it's got to feel good, and I bet you the cavities feel great too from eating a whole box like that.
A little cavity won't hurt here and there.
Little cavity don't hurt. You know, that's what the isn't that what the I'm trying to think of the name of the organ. Whatever. Anyways, we're moving on into our next clip, where we saw some Ukrainian T-64 tanks and a pretty decent variety of them. A T-64 BVK, a BV, and a Bulat. These are all from the 1st Tank Brigade. Oh, we got that Shad music. We can see the BV passing by first, it seems. We can see the 2nd BV coming up. I don't really know what the difference is in between the BV and the BVK, but I believe that may be the BV right there. And then the last tank right here. Actually, that's the second to last tank. That's a Bulat, a T-64 BM Bulat. And now we can see the next tank in the unit coming up. And this one, once again, appears to be a T-64 BV. And then we can see them being followed up by the danger of the Ukrainian armed forces, some kind of a Volkswagen Golf? I don't know. It kind of looks like a Volkswagen Golf to me, but I'm not really sure.
Let's just leave it as the people's car.
It's the people's car. It's some kind of people's car. It's either a communist people's car or a nationalist people's car. Regardless, it's a people's car. It's still interesting to see, though, and great to know that the Ukrainians are pulling around their T-64s on the battlefield so that way they can provide support to the infantry that most likely need it. We're going to be moving on to our next clip of Location Unknown News, where we also saw that the Ukrainians were able to grab up another prisoner. And I gotta say, this one was fairly interesting because they actually had a little bit of exposition. We can see them standing in a crater hole right here and showing the width of the crater hole, most likely caused by an MLRS or an artillery shell. And now we can see them, let's see, it looks like they're putting some tape over the prisoner's eyes to get him ready to move. We now see the Ukrainian soldier cutting to later on in the day where they're getting shelled. The AK falls over a little bit. I'm really impressed that he even stood up at all for a little bit. Now you can see him riding the rifle again. And now you can see the prisoner once more. It actually appears that this man has peed his pants. Like, literally peed his pants. Fairly interesting. We now see them rolling him over. You can see that the machine gun he had was not, it doesn't appear that the barrel has been zeroed properly. It appears that the barrel is actually tilted a little bit to the right, which is not good for accuracy reasons. I can't say that it would be a massive detriment to Russian accuracy. The Russians are already inaccurate as it is, so I don't really think that the curved barrel would be changing their accuracy from dead-on accurate to inaccurate, but it still won't help them at all. Anyways, that is the end of that little clip, and once again showing that the Ukrainians were able to take one Russian prisoner today. We're going to be moving on from that clip of Location Unknown News and on into our next one, where we also saw a picture of a British AS-90 in training. The AS-90s are the primary SPG of the British Army ever since around the 1990s, I believe, or even the late 1980s, although I don't think that was the case. Let me pull that up real quick. Let me make sure I'm getting those numbers correct. The AS-90 was introduced into service in, let's see, it actually stands for Artillery System for the 1990s. So I got that right. So the name literally tells you when this thing was brought into service. It was brought in the 90s. So anyways, we can see a picture of one of the AS-90s right here. 32 of these are supposed to have been delivered to the Ukrainian armed forces. And we can see one of them right here on a training field somewhere in Ukraine as they're getting ready to send this thing on up towards the lines. And much like every other Western artillery piece that has been used so far, hopefully you'll be able to deliver the devastating kind of fire support that Ukrainian forces will need to conduct the counteroffensive that is coming up soon. And from what we're seeing on the Russian side, it ought to be a cakewalk. Anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that little picture in the Location Unknowns and on into our last bit, where we saw, of course, the Russian casualty report. There were no Bobcat skid steers lost.
Oh, man, not a single Bobcat, but it looks pretty good in pretty much every other category.
Oh, it is. The infantry casualties were average over the course of the war, around 510, so we're not seeing any numbers that are quite high or really high in that category. They are fairly average. However, in literally every other category, the numbers were high. We did see that 16 armored personnel carriers have been destroyed over the past 24 hours. That is fairly high by any standard in the war. We also saw that 13 supply trucks were destroyed as well, which is fairly good on the higher average side of things. We also saw that 2 main battle tanks were destroyed. That may be actually a little bit below average, about 2 to 3 tanks below average, but still, not bad at all, and it is good to see that they were able to get 2 whole main battle tanks. They also got 10 artillery systems, bringing the number up to nearly 2,900, and they're getting on their way. I'm telling you, they are getting on their way with the artillery. I don't think the Russians will have any artillery left by the end of this war, or APCs for that matter, because they've lost about 1 million of each. We also saw that 21 drones were destroyed, 3 entire MLRSs. That is actually quite high for any given day in the war, and great to see that they almost got an entire Grad battery. And then finally, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. We didn't see much more in any other direction. It seems as though things beyond the, I guess you could say, frontline equipment were not lost in high numbers, or really at all for that matter. But still, it is great to know that we can always see that Ukrainian forces are doing their best, and while they didn't have a great day taking out the Russian infantry, they did have an excellent day taking out everything that is supporting the infantry and their attacks against Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut and Avdiivka. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from our casualty report. Of course, the infantry losses were okay. They were average. Everything else was actually quite exceptional. We're going to be moving on from the location unknowns. And real quick, I'm actually going to take this moment to ask y'all, have y'all peeped the Twitter? And the reason why, no, I don't want to go to the Twitter login. I want to go to Twitter. The reason why I'm asking is because there is a couple of things that we're not going to be covering tonight that we do cover on our main Twitter page. Oh, what?
Did you see that?
Let's see. Oh, that's
Wait a minute, is that Uman? Oh, that's another place.
Yeah. And also there's a missile attack going on right now as we speak against the Ukrainians. Air raid sirens have been alerted across the entirety of the country. But that will be a part of tomorrow's news cycle as the missile attack is not concluded yet. So we really don't have the full story yet. Anyways, there are some stories that we cannot cover tonight on stream that are covered here on our Twitter. For example, the Chinese Navy is once again heading back out towards Taiwan, and we are currently covering that literally an hour ago. We've also been covering a whole bunch of other stuff, like the Army aviators that are going to be in there for 3 more years, apparently, due to a, I guess you could say, the fine print on their contracts, and also I didn't read this one, actually. I must have skipped this one. 2 Army Apache helicopters crashed in Alaska. We don't know any extra information at the moment right now.
We actually found out it was because of a training exercise. Apparently not a mechanical malfunction, but somehow they collided, from what I understand.
Well, hopefully the pilots are okay, but helicopter pilots surviving crashes is pretty difficult, considering that almost no helicopter in the world, except for the Ka-52, has any kind of way to eject the pilots from the helicopter. They just kind of have to ride the thing down. But anyways, we have been reporting a lot of news. We're actually going to be talking about this one here in a little bit once we start getting into the southern area, because we did see that the Russians are now using the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as an actual military base and mounting weaponry on the rooftops. We'll be getting to that here in a little bit, so make sure to stick around for that, because that'll be a part of the Southern Front or Kherson area news. But before we get into all of that, I just want to make sure to let y'all know about the Twitter once again. The link for the Twitter is in the description below this video. You can actually find the Twitter. You can also find United 24. And you can also find today's map, where we have all of this news laid out in little bulletin points in dots, so that way we can cover it on here as best as possible. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Twitter. Make sure to check it out, by the way. And we're now going to be moving on into our frontline news, which we have an excessively high amount today, especially in the city of Bakhmut, where there's been a large amount of activity and action. But before we get into any of that, we have to cover the polls, because Matthew's been throwing up some really good polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for our first question segment, we have 2 polls to address, and the very first one says, UK intel shows that Russia has established fighting positions atop nuclear reactors at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and what are your thoughts? 71% said it's next-level nuclear terrorism by Russia, 5% said unsure, 21% said, nothing new but still bad, and 3% said it's very smart for Russia. And I personally think it's not smart for anyone to establish a fighting position on top of a nuclear reactor. I don't think there's any sane person that say that's smart at all. I would say that is next level nuclear terrorism. Russia knows what they're trying to do here. The Ukrainians are not going to fire on that facility to try to take the Russians out, because they know what's probably going to happen. Very despicable, and we actually have pictures on the Twitter of them on top of the reactor, and very disturbing to see. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's stupid in a way, but it is smart in another. Of course, the Ukrainians aren't ever going to attack the power plant directly. That would be suicidal for really everyone involved. So we know that for sure. But it's also stupid, on the other hand, of the Russians to even try and make a nuclear power plant literally well, it's even worse than a nuclear bomb when you really think about it, because while a nuclear bomb is devastating and causes a large amount of damage in an instant, a nuclear reactor like the ones in Zaporizhzhia, or even the ones at Chernobyl, if going into a meltdown and the meltdown is never contained, or it is a terrible meltdown, there really is no way to counter that. The damage will almost be permanent as far as people are concerned. And so it's crazy to think that they do something like that. I honestly have to lean on the side of that poll saying that's a stupid move by the Russians. But if they're aiming to not be shot at, then it is a somewhat smart move. But I still think that is one of the dumbest things you can do in a war, is to put soldiers on top of a nuclear power plant. That just seems like you're begging for something to go wrong. Anyways, with the Russians, knowing the Russians, they'll put AT mines on the roof just in the open air, and one of them will step on one and they'll blow the whole thing up and then just blow up in the roof to the reactor, because Russians are Russians. I don't know how to explain it, but that's how it'll most likely go. But with that, I hope we address that poll. Go ahead.
And also before you move on, if you want, there was a picture on the Twitter post of the actual positions themselves on top of the reactor, if you want to show that.
Well, we're actually going to be getting to that in the Kherson segment.
Oh, you had that for later.
Yeah, I have that.
Well, never
for later.
mind then.
And so
all right, so
we are on to the next
with
one.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's get on to the next one.
And the next one says, Ukrainian Defense Minister Reznikov says expectations for the offensive are definitely overheated. And what are your thoughts? 39% said, I agree with him. Don't expect too much. 14% said, unsure. 26% said, I'm mixed on it. And 21% said, I disagree. This is a do or die situation. And I'm with the 39%. I don't think we should overhype this thing. We risk overhyping it, and then if it doesn't turn out to, absolutely demolish the Russians, then people are going to start losing hope in the war. They're going to start losing interest, and we can't have that. I saw some folks taking Reznikov's statements to mean he thinks the counteroffensive is going to be unsuccessful, and I didn't get that impression. It seems to me that he just wants everyone to hamper it down to a realistic level of expectation, which is reasonable, but that's the way I took it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And can you reread the prompt again real quick?
It says, Ukrainian Defense Minister Reznikov says expectations for offensive are definitely overheated, and thoughts?
I would have to say the expectation, I think that might be trying to downplay their plans for the counteroffensive, because there's no reason right now to think that a Ukrainian counteroffensive would not go well, based off of the precedents that the Ukrainians have been able to lay out before in Balaklia and Kherson alone, and not just the defeat of Russian forces in the northern area of Ukraine at the very beginning of the war. There's no reason to think that the Ukrainians would not be able to blow through Russian lines and conduct a very successful counteroffensive right now. At the same time, however, you don't want people putting all of their hopes and stakes on one thing, and then losing hope like most people do. I don't know what it is with folks, and this is a historical thing really that's been the same throughout history. People will put their hopes and dreams onto one thing succeeding, and if it fails, then morale is shattered just permanently. I personally have high expectations for the counteroffensive myself, but if it does not go well, the war is still going on. You don't have to win every single battle. You just have to win the war. So with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well in my opinion, but I still have very high hopes and high expectations for this upcoming counteroffensive. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll for now. So we are moving into our super chat questions. And up first, we have a very generous $50 donation from Cindy Mitchell. And thank you very much, Cindy, for the support. And she says, while I studied through that, hey guys, great job, and have house load. My grandson Tucker needs tape. Don't ask. Send it to the chat, Matt.
And thank you so much for the support, Cindy. We will be trying to have your house load. Your grandson Tucker needs tape. Don't ask. I don't know what that means, actually. Do you know what that means, Matthew?
Have house load. My grandson Tucker needs tape. Don't ask. I'm not really sure about the house load part.
I don't know
I'll be honest.
I don't know, but I'd still thank you so much for the support, Cindy Mitchell, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make this thing possible. Of course, it isn't, and I'm always like trying to figure out how in the world do I say this, because I'm always trying to say it a new way each time and not sound like a broken record. But it's not all about the support on this channel. Of course, it helps to keep this thing running, and we always want to thank everyone so much for their support. But regardless, whether the support came in a lot or not, we would keep this thing running. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to be able to make this thing roll, because without folks like you, it would be very difficult for this channel to keep going. So with that, we will make sure to grab a live chat, and thank you so much once again for helping us to keep the Leaf Spring Army and the Enforcer channel alive. And so with that, what do we got for a live chat, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question goes to Shake the Hands, who says, Enforcer, what about the Turkish nuclear plant?
The Turkish nuclear plant. I would have to be honest with you. I don't really know a lot about the Turkish nuclear power plants. Turkish nuclear power plant. Let's see. Where is this thing? It's got a 3.6 star review. Y'all know what that means. We're about to have to start digging into the review. So let's see. It's way down near Cyprus, actually. And I gotta say, Matthew, I hope this thing isn't made out of cypress trees. But anyways, let's...
man, get out of here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So it's currently under construction. It appears that it's not completed yet. And I'm guessing this is the only one they have. And it appears that it's already racked up quite a large amount of reviews. Let's see. Oh, now it's going to show us every nuclear power plant in the world, except for the ones in Alabama. I guess they just don't like Alabama. Anyways... let me go back out real quick, to Turkish nuclear power plant. No, and now it's going to show us all the ones in Alabama. Come on. Let's see. So, is the only large nuclear power plant in Turkey. The only large nuclear power plant. So I'm guessing there's another? I don't know. Let's see. It is expected to generate around 10% of the country's electricity when completed. That's pretty huge. In May 2010, Russia and Turkey signed an agreement that a subsidiary of Rosatom would build, own, and operate a power plant at Akku comprising 4 1,200 megawatt units. Construction of the first reactor has commenced in April 2018. In 2013, Russian nuclear construction company Atomstroyexport and Turkish company unpronounceable, signed the site preparation contract for the proposed Akku nuclear power plant. The contract includes excavation work at the site. Let's see here. And the first unit is expected to be completed this year. It's expected to be the first build, own, operate nuclear power plant in the world. Very interesting. I'd have to be honest with you. That is an excellent question. But I wouldn't...
Oh, here's a piece of the puzzle for you. I saw Christian Cruz say Erdogan and Putin were supposed to open it today, but I presume because Erdogan is still somewhat ill or sick, that it was probably postponed, but I don't know for certain.
It may have been. And of course, I don't really know much about this at all, but that is pretty interesting to hear. But I would assume that it will probably, if he's sick for a while, it may open with or without him, just to try and get the power plant running. Because I don't think anyone showed up, honestly, Matthew, when the Browns Ferry power plant was open. I think it just kind of opened and nobody really cared. So that may be what they do to the Akku nuclear power plant, although it seems to be a massive deal for Turkey, considering that this one power plant alone will be 10% of their entire electricity production. Still, it is very interesting here that it is kind of sponsored by the Russians, or being built and operated by a Russian company, because that appears to be allowing the Russians a little bit of control, in a way, over Turkish electrical infrastructure, which could pose a large amount of issues in the future, especially if Erdogan was to pass away here soon, and then a new Turkish government comes to being that brings Turkey more so in the historic direction that Turkey has been in since Ataturk founded the Republic of Turkey in the 1920s. Another interesting thing I'd like to know is that the seismic activity in Anatolia, even in the area where it was built, which is the lowest seismic activity area in all of Anatolia, it's still somewhat high, I believe, even compared to a place like Alabama, where there really is no seismic activity at all. And that's a little concerning when you think about it, because what if an earthquake happens, like one did at Fukushima, and the power plant had a couple of things overlooked? That could be a little concerning.
I would say it sounds kind of similar to something else.
Kind of similar, but hopefully everything's fine. And also you can see the ground that the power plant will be constructed on here before they even seem to have broke ground. But with that, I hope we addressed that.
Also, real quick, I saw Trister One say, can we have a quick look at the reviews, just one or two of them?
Yes. I was wanting to get... There we go. Well done. You are building a nuclear power plant in a highly earthquake-prone area. You are building a future Chernobyl that will destroy all the area in a potential 8-hour earthquake. Congratulations to your politicians and the Turkish people for doing nothing about that. You decided your future and your kids' future. That's interesting.
Damn,
That's
30 likes on it, too.
Yeah, 30 likes on it. This comment was done on 2023. One to 2 days after the 7.8 Richter earthquake close to the nuclear power plant. Just have to look at the comments of the Turkish people older than that day to see how clueless they are about what they are building. You are building a future Chernobyl there. So it seems that a lot of people are talking about the earthquake risk. And honestly, I'd have to say most of the time I would be saying, these people are just scared of nuclear power or something similar. But considering seismic activity appears to be a major concern across the entirety of the Anatolian area, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to build a nuclear power plant there. And everyone's saying something about the seismic zone. It's like, yeah, it's not that great. And on top of that, it may be that they canceled opening the power plant altogether because remember, and let me make sure to find it again. It's somewhere around here. I'm trying to... Dang it, I forgot where it was. It's somewhere around Cyprus. I remember that. So it's down here on the coast somewhere. Where in the world did it go? I can't find it again. I know I'll find it. Wait a minute, here it is. There it is. It's right there. So this is where the massive earthquake happened. And let me find it again. Let me make sure we're getting it right. At Gaziantep. Right over here in the area just north of Syria. So it is not that far, really, in terms of miles. Probably like 250 miles away from that area. Yeah, about 250 miles, just about. And so it's not that far from a place where a massive earthquake was just had. It could be a bit of an issue. And seismic activity is one of the major things. It's really the only concern in the United States from the, I believe it's the Board of Atomic Energy or something like that. I forgot the name for the U.S. Bureau that overlooks atomic power plants. But that is one of the major concerns that they look over whenever new nuclear power plants are to be constructed or whenever risk assessments are made, is how close they are to a seismic zone and how active that seismic zone is. And that's why in places like California, you don't really see, I guess you could say, as many nuclear power plants as you would in other places, because that area is highly susceptible to earthquakes and seismic activity, and that on its own could create a large amount of problems, many issues for a nuclear power plant in that area. So I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully they've planned this thing out well and there is no massive amounts of seismic activity that occur that can damage that power plant. But moving on just from Putin and Erdogan opening it today, or supposed to be opening it today, it does appear that there's a little bit of risk involved with that. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, Cindy Mitchell, and sponsoring that live chat, and of course helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Mike D, who puts in a very generous $41 donation. And thank you very much, Mike, for the support and keeping us running. He says, did you see the Red Cross made a PSA? Google Red Cross video games. They want people who play war simulation video games to follow the rules of war.
Let's see, Red Cross video games. Oh
my God.
Oh no.
This is like some of that, sketchy kind of statements that come out from people occasionally.
Let's see. It's not new. One second. Let me try and read this. Is an important symbol of humanitarian protection, whether it's transporting vulnerable people, treating their wounded, distinctive sign in an increasingly uncertain world. Emblems become when someone misuses a Red Cross video game industry being just one of many, we seek their cooperation in ending the unauthorized use. Actually, they threaten to sue. In nearly all cases, they comply and no further action is necessary because they threaten to sue. As a humanitarian organization, our preferred choice is to educate people about the emblem, seek cooperation. Let's see. And one second, I'm trying to look at this. Red Cross asks gamers to follow rules of war. I'm going to have to be honest with you here. It's a video game, and so I don't really know why in the world we're going to act like the rules of war apply to fiction. That would be like saying 1984 as a book is prohibited because it has depictions of murder, violence, and torture in it, when that is kind of the point. I wouldn't really get that, to be honest with you. I don't really get it, to be honest with you. It's a video game. And it's just a depiction of fiction for the most part. And
how to lose credibility in one sentence. This is how you do it.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Because that's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just me, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to sit there and say something like, I know the kids are just playing Nerf out in the yard, but, they could seriously grow up and, like, execute Chechen prisoners or something. It's like, that makes no sense. It's just, like, jumping so far. But anyways, thank you for sharing that with me. That, I have to be honest, is a little silly to me. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel keep on running. And to be quite honest with you, I don't really get it. The Red Cross is a good organization. They've done a lot of good in the world, and they're one of the oldest humanitarian organizations in existence. But stuff like that, it's like, you know, that doesn't really add up to me. But anyways, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next for our last one of the first question segment, it goes to Mark, Colonel of the LSA, and he puts in a extremely generous $115 donation. And Mark, thank you very much. And he says, "Evening, guys, and where are the cadaverites?"
And thank you so much for the support, Mark. Mark is still somehow not promoted. He's supposed to be a general by now. He's still a colonel. But still, thank you for the support. To answer that question, the Kadyrovites are really nowhere to be found. From what we understand, Ramzan Kadyrov is also sick with some kind of an illness. I forgot which one it specifically is. It could be like cholera, typhoid, I don't know. It's something.
The liver problems.
Oh, Don, I'm turning yellow, Don. I'm turning yellow, man. I've got jaundice, Don. But anyways, we don't really see the Chechen Kadyrovites anymore behind the lines, on the lines, anywhere for that matter. They've largely disappeared. Honestly, I would say that they were replaced by the Wagner at some point, because the Wagner popped up in nearly the same part of the front line that the Chechen Kadyrovites were in, and then slowly over time the Chechen Kadyrovites just disappeared. I don't even think they're in the war anymore, as far as video or picture evidence is concerned. So I think that all of them went back to Chechnya, and they're just hanging out down there. They're probably turning into military police that are helping to mobilize other soldiers to put them into the Russian army, most likely. But with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because folks like you make it possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. We're now going to be moving on from that question segment and on into the frontline news, starting off in the Northeast. Now, really quickly, I do have to say that we didn't have a map update before the stream started, and it appears that the map has now updated. And so, let's go back, and let's go forward. And there has been no frontline changes according to Deep State UA in the northeastern area today, which is typical and expected. We did see, however, that near the town of Zalaman, we saw that some open-air mine storages were blown up by the 110th. And we can hear the club music playing, and we can see the bomblet explode, and there was no nuclear explosion. What? What happened? What? Come on, man. But we can see what appears to be a tiny fire over there, burning on one of them. Man, I gotta tell you, man, this is a moment right here where you tell the drone operator, put it in reverse, Taryn! Put it in reverse!
Yeah, seriously.
Because this thing about to go nuclear. Actually, it's a really slow burn right now. I mean, you see a little pop coming from it. A little bit of gas. Another one. Wow, these mines have got to be the lamest mines we've seen in the war. They're burning like firewood. They're not even burning like the usual nuclear explosions that we see. And we're waiting. And the mines are just burning. I mean, they're really just burning. They are being destroyed, which is great. But, you know, I thought there would be a nuclear explosion. I'm a little saddened by this. We can see that the fire is spreading to the other side of the field, however. And now all the mines are a small little fire. The weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. Sucker bliat, my clothes are on fire. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Yeah, it just didn't go nuclear. It just burned. Never seen that before, really. That kind of took me off guard. Anyways, that's the end of that clip, and we can see right there that some TM62, which sounds a lot like a T-62M, mines, were blown up by the Ukrainian 110th Brigade in that area, and it's great to see. Moving behind the lines, we saw that something better happened, and it was much more explosive and much more dramatic. A S-300 air defense system was destroyed, and it appears that the Russian operators that were standing nearby when it blew up went running like Usain Bolt, and so here's a video. The S-300 explodes, and the Russian goes, oh, bliet, oh, mama, oh, bliet, oh, bliet. He's taking off. We can hear the missiles going haywire in the background as these guys are literally legging it. And we hear that thing about to drop the base, and that's the end of the clip. Man, What a video. I love how they literally just watch the thing blow up in front of them.
Jeez.
Oh, man. Dude, this is like those videos of like a Kentucky Derby or whatever, where they got the giant lifted trucks out there and they're like revving the engine and the engine explodes like right out of the hood. Like, that's like the same thing right there, but in Russian army form.
True, true.
And then they go running. Man, that sound in the background could actually make a pretty good mixtape, I'm not gonna lie. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and we did see that an S-300 was destroyed. And we're always happy to see an S-300 destroyed, and the Russians, of course, weep for the loss of about a $15 million surface-to-air missile system. We're now going to be moving on from that and down towards the Seversky Donets River near Shibelivka, where we saw that some Russians tried to get a little creative today. Many of y'all may know that rivers have water in them. I know that's a shocker. But one thing that's really shocking about water is that usually Russians melt when they get touched by water. It's kind of part of the witch thing. But anyways, we saw that these Russians didn't melt. In fact, they sought out the water. They're trying to go the way of the Moskva. They were sitting here trying to avoid the drone seeing them, yet the drone saw them anyways, because, you know, looking at people who are standing like to like waist deep water, I mean, it's not like they're hidden or anything. But here's the clip. When you see the drone zooming in, and these two Russian soldiers are just sitting in the water, just staring at each other going, "Don't move, Bled. If we don't move, the drone can't see us, Bled. We're very smart."
Oh, let me tell you something. Those aren't ducks right there.
Man, there's no duck, Bled. That is Vadim, Bled. And his little friend Igor, and they're going, "Suka, Bled." It's sauce anyways. Now we're just cold, we're wet, we're sad, and we have no artillery support. I quit. Let me call up my commissar and cry a little, Bled. But that's the end of the clip. And of course, I don't know what the hell they were thinking when they did this. I don't even know what the plan was, but it looks like they were caught anyways. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip of Russians trying to hide in the middle of the Seversky Donets River, and we're now going to be moving on down towards the Bakhmut front line. And we got a lot of video and picture evidence from Bakhmut today, going over the past 24 hours and making sure that there are no frontline updates. There is a frontline update we have to make. The T0.
Oh,
let me
wait a minute. Wait, did you? I'm getting some reports in the chat. Did you see what was happening in that last video?
No.
Something was apparently happening in that last video. I can't repeat it though.
Could you send it over Discord DM?
Yes. Oh goodness.
Let's see here. I'm gonna have to open up the DM on the phone.
There, you got it.
No way, Bled.
I didn't see it, but I saw a lot of people saying that happened. So you know, you never know.
Well, you never know, man. You never know. By the way, check. Peep the Twitter. peep the Twitter. Anyways. Moving on from that, we did see that the Russians did make an advance onto the C-0504 today. It appears that they were able to take a whole city block. At this point, one city block actually counts. The Ukrainians don't really control a lot of Bakhmut anymore, and so pushing up to one city block like that, it actually is starting to count a little bit. And it appears that the Ukrainians are still holding the MiG monument down here to make sure that the supply line will remain open, but it's not really, I guess you could say, going to change much at this point. The Ukrainians have put up an amazing defense of Bakhmut for 7 entire months. The plan at the outset was to not hold the city. It was just to inflict as much damage on Russian forces as possible, to slow them down, and then to make sure that they pretty much would get the victory, but it would cost them everything in the end. That was largely the plan going into Bakhmut, and it appears that the Ukrainians have followed that plan to a T. And I cannot say this enough. 7 months later, the Russians have lost tens of thousands of soldiers fighting for the city. They've lost hundreds of tanks, hundreds of APCs, dozens of artillery pieces, several aircraft, several helicopters. They have lost a lot for this city, and it's cost them everything. There really is not going to be a proper standing Russian army, at least in terms of technology and training, after this battle is over. Even at this moment, their forces are completely exhausted, and a lot of the frontline fighting units that are actually pushing forward are either the Wagner PMCs or the Gazprom PMCs that picked up and ran away last night. And so the battle is about to be coming to an end, it seems to be so. But also, there's a little bit of a silver lining to this, because it is rumored that once the battle for Bakhmut ends, which it appears that it may be soon, that we could expect that the counteroffensive will be beginning incredibly soon right after that. So we may want to hope that the Battle of Bakhmut starts to end a little bit sooner rather than later. Anyways, moving on into the video news and evidence, today near Blahodatne, we saw that the 3rd Brigade attacked some Russian forces in the area. This was all observed by an aerial reconnaissance drone. And also we heard some really cool Home Depot music. Here's the clip. We can see Ruski bled. He sit in trench. He walked down trench. His AGS explode bled. We can see more Russians in trench bled. They sit in trench. They roll around in trench. They love trench. We can see Ukrainian soldier lob grenade. Grenade blow up. Russian take nap. We can see other Russian soldier bled. We see the city of Bakhmut bled. The Russians cry for every square block they take, going, "Why is it so difficult, bled?" And so that's the end of the clip. But there was a little bit of a look at the 3rd Brigade just on the western ridgeline, fighting to push the Russians back, or more so just inflicting casualties on them, which is nice to see. Moving on down into a clip that we located somewhat near the western ridgeline, we saw some more footage from Bakhmut today. And so...
Yeah, bля.
And also, I'd like to apologize real quick. This is in a tiny window, which may make it a little bit more difficult to see for people who are on a phone or a tablet. I actually looked at the numbers recently, and a third of our viewers watch this on TV, a third of them watch it on the phone, and a third of them watch it on tablets. So, I'm sorry to everyone who's watching it on a smaller screen, because this is hard to see. I did try to find a way to make this larger before the video played, earlier before the stream. Sadly, I couldn't find a way, so please bear with us on this one. But I'll make sure to, I guess you could say, explain everything that's happening.
Блядь.
See the Ukrainians standing behind a concrete block. It appears that they're moving around and firing. We see this guy firing blindly around the corner.
Пидоры, блядь.
We now see them hanging out right here,
Може каску ліпше взяти. Дайте нам каску.
discussing for a second.
Опа.
Дайте нам каску.
Давай, хуй так.
Справа наші хуярі.
Походу.
And we can see them hanging out. We can hear gunfire in the distance. It appears that this may be a small outpost for the Ukrainian soldiers here.
Це що, мій магазин, да? Да. Чи ні?
Пустий.
Так, мій.
Бать він йде повним ходом, нахуй.
Хлопець, то вже 3-ю годину, блядь, заїбав нахуй.
Discussing still as the firefight continues on, but we don't hear any rounds really coming towards them at the moment.
Хай пацани трохи по...
Пацаны приходят тоже, блядь, в адреналине.
2-7-0.
We hear an explosion in the distance. It sounds like it may be artillery, and we can see the Ukrainian soldier firing over the berm. He is now looking back at a Ukrainian soldier who's been overlooking at something on the concrete pillar, and we can now see the Ukrainian soldier getting prone on the ground and now firing to the left side of the concrete barricade. He's empty. The infamous click. We can hear him go, "Suka," as he pulls out another magazine and puts it on in. Clicks right in.
That click at the end made my stress levels like go through the roof.
Yeah, that did make mine too. I was like, oh. Will you see him firing again? Okay, so I'm gonna have to be honest with y'all. When we make a gun review video on the AK, I've already gone and shot the AK, so it's not gonna be a first impression. This thing, it looks like an AK-74. It is an AK-74, but for some reason, when I hear it firing, Matthew, it literally sounds, although it's a smaller cartridge, just like the one we have that's in 7.62. Just like it, like the sound of the action and everything.
It really does.
But you never even heard it fire.
I believe you.
Matthew believes in me, boy. We now see him handing down the AK. Actually, he handed something else off. He's now putting the AK up on the concrete berm.
Оце сучки, блядь.
Oh, a little bit of the cough.
Оце
And
вони
you have a
рак.
little cough.
Така
A little
біда.
bit of tuberculosis, please. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But it is very interesting to see the Ukrainian soldiers engaged in a firefight somewhere near Bakhmut. Of course, it's very hard for Ukrainian soldiers in a firefight to get good footage of the forces that they're firing at, and they're probably several hundred yards away, which is pretty hard to film in the first place. But very interesting to see these Ukrainian soldiers somewhere at a small outpost in the area of Bakhmut, most likely on the western ridge, fighting back against the Russians. Moving on behind the lines for a moment, I want to talk about the nuclear meltdown that Prighozin had on the bus today. It seems as though Prighozin has become one of those people that just rides the bus, like everywhere. Like every video we see of him now, he's riding a bus. But in the middle of one of these bus rides is either the bumpy road or the suspension on the bus that got to him, but he went off, literally. And so, here's the clip. And it's titled quite eloquently, it says Prighozin loses it. Okay, and so here's the clip. Until your children, kids from Rublevka, go to this shithole, you'll think you're playing soldiers. And when you come to their cemetery, they will open a zinc coffin and you'll see the charred remains inside. Then you'll feel everything that you were doing.
He's saying that about Russia?
Yeah. In the interspecies struggle with other peddlers of violence, Evgeny Prighozin decided to use the most powerful weapon, the truth. The main problem today, which exists with PMC in particular, in order to dilute the influence of Wagner, we're going to be skipping past this part, and we're going to be moving up a little bit more forward because we saw a part of that yesterday. No one understands what is going on. As in 1941, we determine our positions, who is where, with a shot. If there is a shot, it means they are still alive. It's just the extermination of the Russian people. Nothing but genocide. When a meeting is held 300 kilometers from the front line, you do not see it. They will wash, shave, and clean the soldier for you so that he can report to you and how great he's doing. If you want to live your life like before, you shouldn't have started the war. And if you started a war, then look, outside the window, everything is turned to rubble. And if it's turned to rubble, then you have to accumulate all your efforts, especially since practice has shown that we are not the strongest nation in the world. Unfortunately. Everyone is enjoying themselves, and they absolutely do not give a shit about the fact that they themselves have made a mess which the Russian people have to clean up. The high losses, in general today, and I have no doubt they will be even higher, are due to a lack of organization and snobbery, which affects a certain number of people who think that having reached a certain level, they become gods. The issue with the army is that it is dominated by rank worship and ass-licking, to put it bluntly. We agree with Prighozin. He and those like him should completely disappear from the face of the earth.
Damn.
Man, some people are putting in roasts in
fire.
these things. But interestingly enough, we can see here that Prighozin is almost coming out right at this point, talking about how much he hates the Russian government, how disorganized the Russians are, and that they're now, according to him, from his own words right there, on the losing side of this war. Now, this guy was one of the most heavily promoted guys at the beginning of this war. Him and Putin were like this. And I know y'all can't see my fingers, but my fingers are put together right now. They were like that. We don't see that anymore. He's sitting there referencing Putin in a way, saying that some people think they're like gods. He's talking about the rank worship in the army and how these people don't know what they're doing. And also, he doesn't know what he's doing either, so I don't really know where he's coming from saying that. But still, you can see that things are starting to really fall apart behind the lines, because even the main people who are supposed to be peddling this story of a great patriotic war, they're not even believing it anymore. They don't even know why they're there. He doesn't even understand why he's there. All he knows is that there's a contract that he's trying to get paid on, and if thousands of random people from Russian prisons have to die to complete that contract, then so be it. That's all he knows, but beyond that, He doesn't like the war anymore, and he's now openly critical of the Russian government as well, showing that there is a lot of fracturing inside of Russia. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, I would say that with, I guess you could say, more prominent figures like him saying stuff like this, the Russians will most likely not last much longer. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and back into the Battle of Bakhmut itself, moving into the rear lines where the Russians are at this point, where we saw some aerial pictures of Bakhmut. Of course, this is the city of Bakhmut as it stands right now, and every single one of these completely destroyed houses have been fought for days, if not weeks, by Ukrainian and Russian forces, as the Ukrainians held up the Russians for as long as physically possible. The destroyed houses are a testament to the bravery of the Ukrainian soldiers that withstood these barrages and bombardments to be able to hold this town for 7 entire months. We're now going to be moving on to our next bit of news, where we also saw the Ukrainians demolishing a high-rise building to make sure that the Russians could not use it. And you see one of the buildings on fire here out of this apartment building complex, and we can now see that they're detonating charges at the bottom of this building, and it has now come down and collapsed. We can also see that a second building appears to be going down as well. They may be getting rid of the whole compound here, it's just that we're only seeing these two buildings collapse at the moment. And we can see the smoke billowing up from the remains, ending the clip and showing us that the Ukrainians are not going to let the Russians get anything out of the city to use against the Ukrainians in later battles, even going to the point of destroying these buildings, considering that they'll already have to be destroyed and rebuilt after the war is over due to the amount of damage that they've sustained. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of news, once again a little bit behind the lines. This one is actually watching the Russian lines. The Ukrainians are supposedly around 300 to 150 feet away in this video from the buildings that we're about to see being hit. Of course, the Ukrainians have gotten ammunition where they can use the HIMARS as a frontline MLRS instead of a strategic MLRS, firing at supply lines and supply bases well behind the lines. Of course, the Ukrainians have now been firing on frontline forces with the HIMARS for a while, and we can see the destruction of the HIMARS on this video. When you see the apartment complexes here, we can see the first HIMARS rocket come in, and it has caused quite a significant cloud. Of course, a very precise strike. These are guided into an exact GPS coordinate and deviate, I think, by only a few feet at the most inaccurate, hitting dead onto their target and wiping it out with the Ukrainian forces just around 150 to 300 feet away, or about a football field away, for all of our American viewers that grew up like me, using a football field as a system of measurement. We're now going to be moving on from that clip. Great to see that the Ukrainians are using the HIMARS for precise strikes, and we're now moving into watching the Ukrainian soldiers themselves in the Battle of Bakhmut, where we saw them firing an RPG at a building. Here's the clip. You can see the guy throwing up a peace sign, another guy heavily grabbing the camera. When you see a Ukrainian soldier right there with an RPG. I don't know what's on the front of that thing. It appears to be Barry Benson from the B movie.
A little high-vis jacket for safety.
Uh-huh. The missile knows where it is because it knows where it isn't. By calculating where the missile is, and where it isn't. When you see him getting ready to fire it, when you see him standing up.
Damn!
And, oh my god, he dead! He dead! Oh my god! Dude, that guy's gonna come running out of that room. They're gonna say, "Did you hit him?" What? What? Oh, are you okay? No, I can't hear! And boof.
Now let's see the aftermath of that. Turn to the guy.
Oh, there he is!
You know that, like, knocked him around a little bit.
I'll come down there and knock you around a little bit.
Yeah.
You know it did. I bet you that guy, Matthew, like, if he smiled, his teeth would come falling out from how much he was shaking in that room when that thing fired. But, man, I mean, like, that was crazy to watch. This guy literally pulled a Harry Houdini. He said, "Watch me disappear. Watch." And he's just gone. He's just disappeared. But anyway,
is that actually dangerous to do that though? Because it seems like that shockwave would be pretty devastating.
Not really. It's not really devastating for the operator. Now, it would be devastating for someone behind the RPG or kind of closer to the front because the backblast can kill you. But yeah, it was fine for him. It's just that he probably got a lot of dust in his eyes, and he's probably going to have bloodshot eyes after that. But beyond that, he should be fine.
And I saw Kyle Witt say it's a fire extinguisher that they've converted into an RPG round. And was
Oh.
that the case?
Well, it looks like it has like an RPG head back here.
I think that might be something wrapped around an RPG.
Yeah, I think that's like, it looks like a... Wait a minute. Wait a minute, is that one of those rubber pigs and they cut it in half and like taped it to the front of the RPG?
Maybe?
I swear, that kind of looks like a rubber pig. While we watched it go into a puff of smoke again, that looks like one of those rubber pig things that you get for a dog. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on to our next bit of news, where we saw what Bakhmut looks like now. This is some aerial footage taken today of the battlefield as it stands. We can see some smoke rising from the places where there are currently active firefights, but we can see that, of course, the entire city has been completely leveled over the course of the fighting. It has been a tough fought battle. It's about as tough as they get in Ukraine. In fact, this is the toughest fought battle that we've ever seen. It was 7 months long. It's the longest continuous battle that has ever occurred in the war in Ukraine that is not on the Donetsk front line, which is the Battle of Marinka or the Battle of Avdiivka. It is unbelievable to see that the Ukrainians held this town for so long that instead of the Russians just brutally bombarding a town for the hell of it, they brutally bombarded this city to just even try and get the Ukrainians to budge backwards. And after 7 months, they finally may be taking the city, but at a cost that was way too expensive for the Russians at this point in the war with the kind of state they're in. We're now going to be moving into our next clip where we also saw the aftermath of a Russian strike as a Ukrainian soldier came out of a basement to show us what the surrounding area looked like. We see the Ukrainian soldier coming out of the basement.
Дай я гляну, що в мене в комнаті.
See another soldier wearing some rain boots.
Піздець, як я остався живий, нахуй хуй його знає. То в мене, блядь, в комнаті, а того моє ліжко. Я тут якраз
We see
лежав,
him looking around, showing us some of the debris that's collapsed.
Це моє, блядь, на цьому. Винесло мене волною, блядь, в бронік, нахуй.
I mean, you see that the walls just caved in
Нема,
from the
блядь,
explosion,
півхати, нахуй. А то
but the
Діма
building
ще
still
ходить,
stands.
блядь. Діма, блядь.
You see, even in this room, the wall collapsed. We hear him laughing and joking about it.
Захуярили. Ростика теж, блядь, повезло, сидів тут на ліжку, блядь, відкинуло, блядь. Пізда, рулю, блядь.
Плазма ціла, диви, лишилася вже.
Хата вон сусідня, ще горить, дідова згоріла, нахуй.
And with that, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing the Ukrainians even laughing and kidding right after a Russian artillery strike blew out the walls of the building that they were in. With that, we're now moving on to our next clip, where we also saw a supply run to Bakhmut. Still, even at this late point of the battle, supplies must be transported to Bakhmut, and we can see a pretty funny emoji right there. I don't know what that emoji is. I've never seen that on an iPhone, but hey. We see artillery rounds exploding in front of them while we listen to some kind of a Chad music.
Is that PSYOPs on the dashboard right there?
I think it may be. That is, it's PSYOPs! He's there! Hey! When you see them driving on in,
Oh, goodness.
and it's tough. But still, the Ukrainians brave it every single day to make sure that the forces still inside of Bakhmut continue to get the supplies they need to keep this fight going for as long as possible. And a huge credit to these guys because they have a very dangerous job. With that, we're now moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next bit, towards the Highway of Life, or the Highway Perimeter, where we saw continued battles in this area as well. Now, I have to mute this one because it is, I believe, music throughout the entire clip. But it is straight juice. You see that they're, of course, letting us know it is Bakhmut as the video effects come in, looking all modern, all nice. Gotta say, pretty impressive. While I sit there and turn off
Adjust
my
the heater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We now see the Ukrainian forces here. We can see them dropping a gate, hopping into a trench, kind of landing onto another Ukrainian soldier a little bit, trudging through the mud in the trench, getting everything covered in mud. Getting their rifle covered in mud, getting their hands covered in mud, probably even the camera covered in mud. We can now see an artillery shell exploding nearby. See one explode right in front of them. Ukrainian soldiers, such chads that they're completely unfazed. When you see them lobbing a grenade at the Russians, like a Chad. When you hear the grenade explosion, We now see the Russians try and fire at that Ukrainian, and it appears that they weren't that successful. We see the Ukrainian now returning fire. And now we see the Russian forces. Well, that may have actually been the Ukrainians, not really sure. We now see them lobbing a grenade further down the trench. You now see them continuing to fire. And we're going to skip forward a little bit because it is a pretty lengthy video. We now see them sitting in this part of the trench. We see them firing down a little bit more. We're going to skip forward again, where we can see them moving on through the trench. It appears that they're moving through unimpeded at this point, most likely having cleared the trench. We're now going to be skipping forward past this part, and it appears that they may be dragging a wounded Ukrainian soldier off of the battlefield. They're now loading up into the back of an MRAP.
Altenberg's a little heavy on the watermark, and I gotta agree, man.
I've
This
gotta
watermark,
agree.
I can't stop staring at it.
Yeah,
Oh, they weren't. It went
oh, there it
away.
went! There it went! It's gone!
Hey, speak of the devil.
Speak of the devil, I must say.
Never speak of the devil.
Never speak. It's bad luck. You know, as they say, it is bad luck. Also, by the way, I'm not saying anything, but if you want to support this channel with a super chat, you might want to send it in now because that ability may not be around later on tonight in the stream. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from that clip in Bakhmut and out of the city of Bakhmut because there is no other further video evidence to report from that area. It does appear that the Ukrainians are holding the line as best they can and making sure to bleed the Russians dry for every inch of ground gained. With that, we're now going to be moving on further down the line and towards the area of Zaitsevo, where we saw a Russian position. And a tour of it, actually, by a Russian soldier. One of the few videos we've ever gotten from the Russians that is honest. Here's a tour. Guys set up a tank mortar on us now. They want to destroy it. Right next to my trench. There, somewhere further, in that landing, there are some guys sitting. Suryoga is sleeping, but literally. There's a mine on the frame. And then he says a little explicative. Like hobos. We haven't washed for almost a month. You see, the forest is all effed up. They're effing with the mortars, the tanks, and we're sitting here like rats. Our bosses are, so everyone who commands all this, what? Only 2 managed to shoot. We didn't even shoot. 4, right? 4. Nuki, Irik, Linka, Toyan. 1 200s. In short, it's effed up. There are guys sitting there. I don't know what they have, but we're effed up like cockroaches here. We're just sitting in these pits, and we're effing with mortars, tanks, everything we can. Our artillery, gondolas, even the roof flew off. And there's another destroyed Russian tank literally right off to the right. There's another trench, guys. Omsk. Almost all of them. I say they set up a tour. Now they're effing with us. Near my trench, they're effing with the mortars. Well, F. Drones are flying, throwing grenades. Effed up. Maestro is coming. Isn't that the guy from Seinfeld? I don't care.
Maestro.
We're eating all sorts of shit. Quiet. There's nothing buzzing, no drone. My ears are already buzzing. Get the F out of here. I need to warm up.
Короче, как-то так, ребята.
In short, that's how it is, guys. It's
Просто
effed up here.
показывают по
Everything that is
телевизору
shown on
такие,
TV
да
is
больше, нахуй.
effing
Наши
BS.
только
Our guys
отступают,
are
вот
just
эти вот все
retreating.
дальше посадки, вон там
Here are
через
all
такие,
these
блядь,
further
вот
landings.
так.
It's effed up
Все
to
были
see through the
наши.
bushes. They were all ours. Well done. That's the end of the clip. It appears that this guy is just not happy. He's not happy, Matthew. He's not happy with the whole thing. I'm telling you. I mean, like, and this
Man,
guy.
he was talking like nonsense there for a solid minute. Like this guy seems like he might be out of it.
Well, I mean, you know, you'd be a career alcoholic for 20, 30 years, and you see how messed up you are, pal. Give me that vodka, blend. But anyways, that's the end of the clip, and it seems that this guy is just not that happy. He's not happy with the situation, and I wouldn't really have to. Well, I'd agree with him. Really, I'm trying to figure out how the hell to say that. He's not really happy with the situation because it sucks. I'm not really happy that he's there. Hopefully, he won't be there for much longer. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip on the front lines, kind of in the Kurtamivka, Zaitseva area, and on down the front lines into Donetsk near Novoselivka, where we saw that the 79th was hitting some Russian positions. Epic intro. Rock music playing, bomblets falling. It is the Ukrainian manifest destiny. Anyways, we can see the bomblet falling.
Sparta.
And we can see a Russian, he wants to go back into the dugout. It was very inhospitable outside. We can now see some ammo going off. Oh my god. That thing looked like the SpaceX like Starship trying to take off right there. Goodness.
Looked like they hit some light lithium batteries.
Perhaps. We now see another bomblet falling.
Oh,
Man, I'm telling you, get no respect around here. We can see another oh my god!
jeez. The bomblet like flew back up. Did you see
No,
that
I think
piece
that was
of
the
it?
second one that they dropped. Here goes the first one. Yeah, and they dropped a second one in the middle of the mini nuke blowing up.
Oh.
Pieces went flying everywhere. That outpost literally broke up like a Lego set. We see them now flying through the
ash
debris,
cloud.
getting the drone out of there. And that's the end of the clip from the 79th, but I think that these guys are what we would call a s'mores, brought to you by the Russian army. We're now moving on from that clip. Pretty wild to see, I have to say. And on down the line towards Avdiivka, where we saw that the Ukrainians were storming some Russian positions. And so, here is the clip. Oh, let me mute that. We can see them using some kind of a shoulder-fired anti-tank weapon, I'm assuming. We can now see him picking up the GAT, and he's moving on up. Firing as he advances towards the railroad tracks. Dude, this guy thinks he's a French show gunner in the First World War, just walking and firing. Like, it's actually pretty cool. We now see a Ukrainian soldier doing a tactical roll into the crater right next to him. And the soldier is continuing to fire towards the railroad tracks.
Is that a man up there?
Is this a man? Where, блядь?
I saw one over there on the right.
You thought
Up
you
down that
saw...
trench line. Isn't that a man standing up there?
I think that is.
Right there?
I think that
Or is that a stick?
I think that may be a man. Yeah, that's a guy. There's something on the wing of the plane. Sounds like someone's breaking in. But we can see them continuing to fire into the dugout, or more so the crater. Now see them standing around the debris near the railroad tracks. Grenade exploding in front of the soldier. He's now peeking his head back up, aiming his rifle, putting it back down again. We now see the Ukrainian forces have taken the position. We can now see them moving on up towards the railroad track itself.
That grenade did not make it very far. Like, that was a sort of a weak toss.
It didn't make it far at all. When you see the smoke billowing back over them. I saw that, Matthew. I was sitting there thinking, like we kind of went over that a million times, haven't we? Anyways, we can see the Ukrainians moving up once more through the trench. It appears the camera has now been blurred by something, either water or something on top of it. And that's the end of the clip, but showing the Ukrainians assaulting a railroad track in the area around Avdiivka. Moving on into our next clip, we also saw that a sniper got a blanket. Sometimes, Matthew, you gotta give snipers the emotional support they deserve. Everyone is... That actually sounds wrong to say everyone is a kid at heart. That sounds wrong for some reason. But you'll see what I mean here in a second. When you see the sniper lining up a shot, he's got a really nice rifle.
I'd say, look at that scope.
And he fires. And then the Ukrainian soldier in the background's like, "Oh, you look a little cold, comrade." So he comes up with a blanket. And wraps it around the soldier. He gives a thumbs up and then he gets right back to sniping. That's the end of the clip, but I like it. He got a Russian, and then the Ukrainian soldier's like, "Here's a blanket, you deserve it." And the sniper's like, "Oh, thank you, man." And he gets right back to sniping. What a team. This is what a sniper team ought to look like right here, Matthew, is your spotter giving you blankets when you're cold. Absolute legend.
Isn't that nice? I love to see it.
Love to see it. Love to see it. And so with that, we're moving on from that little clip of news on the southern end of Avdiivka and moving down towards the Marinka area, where we saw the Ukrainians clearing out a Russian trench. Whoa. Now that sounds like Eurotrap beat. Dun, 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 dun.
Now we're talking trapaholics.
Trapaholics. We make it look easy. Walk with your boys. Damn, son, where'd you find this? But when you see the bomblet exploding in the trench, you see smoke coming out of it, and we can see the Russians hanging out down there. Actually, we can't see anyone for that matter. We can see a bomblet falling. Falls right there.
Oh.
And oh, some pieces of
it kerplunked them. Then it rolled off, and they just sat there.
Yeah, in essence, Matthew, he got whopped and then he got plopped. We can now see him moving on down the trench a little bit. He didn't really make it too far, and now he's just hanging out. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing the Ukrainians doing their best to clear the trenches around the Marinka area and to make sure to push the Russians back eventually. We're now going to be moving out of the Donetsk area and on into the southern front. Once again, no frontline movement was seen in this area, at least notable enough to really cover. But we did see near Staromayorsk that the Ukrainians were firing off rockets from one of their Mi-24s. Without further ado, here's a clip. Sorry, Mi-8 or Mi-17. Oh. Wait, hang on.
Oh, yes, bliat.
Wait, hang on, Matthew. Be the bigger man you want to be. So let me mute that. So anyways, the Mi-8 or the Mi-17 is firing off its rockets, tilting back towards the ground. I'm sure we'll see it firing off flares here in a second. We see the cameraman panning out into the distance. And it looks like he's trying to find the helicopter again. We can see that it did fire off a singular flare. And it appears
Why does it look so picturesque out here?
Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it? It looks like they're fighting a war in a painting right now. We now see the second Mi-8 has also fired off its rockets. And with that, that's the end of the clip. And I just saw something I want to call out from the live chat, Matthew. Susan Forasiepi said, I enjoy reading your guys' comments. I enjoy reading all of y'all's comments. Sometimes I get distracted because I'm reading all of them so much. And I see William Evans, Thumman, and then A.F. Kaplan said, Sam Elliott, you know what goes better with baked beans? Levi's blue jeans. But still. And then Chris said, do the Sam Elliott voice, and I did it right then. But anyways, That's the helicopter video. Great to see. And we're now going to be moving on from that little clip of the Ukrainians firing off rockets at the Russians and on towards the area of Quilopol, where we saw that the 30th was hitting Russian positions. We can see the Russian position, or what is really just rubbish on the side of the road, but this is technically a Russian position, and we see them firing a mortar out of it. This is a big no-no. We can now see them covering it with limbs, which didn't really do a lot to camouflage it, and it appears that the camouflage work wasn't that good, as the shells landed and the Russians are immediately running for the small bunker. We can now see another shell land right on the mortar pit, and then right onto the bunker, which has caused the ammunition to detonate, and now things have gotten worse. With that, that's the end of the clip, but great to see that another Russian position was knocked out. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in the southern front and on towards the general direction of Melitopol, where we saw that another S-300 in this area of the front line was also destroyed a few days ago, but the video footage came out today. We can see the FPV drone flying in, weapons hot. And we can see it coming in nice and good. We can see the driver hopping out of the cab there, apparently knowing that his time was nigh. Stothel said, "You never fired an RPG, correct?" No, I have not fired an RPG. I haven't fired anything, I guess I could say, that has an explosive in it. Never fired any of that stuff. But we can see the little FPV drone that the Ukrainians hit that S-300 with, colliding with it right there and exploding. And that's the end of the clip, and another $15 million surface-to-air missile launcher once again destroyed. We love to see it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip of the S-300 getting absolutely obliterated. And now, it's time for us to go back to the Twitter. Peter, did you peep the Twitter? And so, let me go to our profile. And at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, once again, I'm doing this to have everyone go peep the Twitter. We're up to 5,516 followers, and it's amazing to see. And it's amazing to see that the Lee Spring Army Expeditionary Force, the LSAEF, has grown in size on Twitter and continues to grow each and every day. I think we've grown like 30 just over the course of the stream. But moving on down to the news in question, we can see right here the pictures of Russian positions right here on the rooftops that have been set up on reactors number 2, 3, and 5. Once again, showing that the Russians are turning the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant into a military, I guess you could say, base, clearly. And we can now see this according to the Ministry of Defense satellite information. And it appears that the International Atomic Energy Association needs to look into this and condemn the Russians strongly for setting up military positions on top of active nuclear reactors. Well, they're not actually active. I believe they've actually all been shut down, but still, if they get hit, it will cause a meltdown. Even if they are shut down, water has to be pumped through these reactors, and so hitting them will most likely cause damage that will stop water from being pumped through the reactors, and then we would have an incredibly dangerous situation on our hands. With that, we're now going to be moving on.
You know, real quick, before you click off of it, one thing I find interesting is the IAEA still has regulators at this plant, and I haven't heard them mention once that Russia has defensive positions actually on top of the reactors. This comes from UK Defense. So this was from an intelligence organization. And it's kind of interesting to me that the IAEA hasn't made this public yet. It suggests that maybe, they're keeping some things private when they probably should let people know. I'm not sure what the motivation is, but kind of interesting.
Pretty interesting, I'd have to say, and it is interesting to hear that the regulators aren't really saying anything about it, and it may be because they're under some kind of threat to not say anything about it. But with that, I hope we covered that fairly well. Once again, make sure to follow the Twitter. It helps the Lee Spring Army to grow once again in every direction and to let folks know what we do over here. And so with that, we've covered everything, north to south, east to west, and without further ado, it is time for the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, here it is. Without further ado, at long last, the speech from President Zelensky. What? Speech. But anyways, here is the video.
Здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні є важливий політичний результат у Страсбурзі на сесії Парламентської асамблеї Ради Європи. Ухвалено резолюцію, якою визначається, що депортація Росією українських дітей містить ознаки геноциду. І це перше визнання такого факту на рівні такої високої міжнародної організації, що об'єднує держави нашого континенту. Якщо говорити практично, це рішення суттєво допоможе нашій глобальній роботі по притягненню Росії та її посадовців, включно з керівником держави-терориста, до відповідальності саме за геноцидну політику проти України. Депортація українських дітей – це один із цілком продуманих елементів намагання Росії стерти ідентичність нашого народу, знищити саму сутність українців Це свідомий злочин геноциду, вчинений російськими посадовцями. Саме так це має кваліфікуватися і політично, і юридично. Сьогодні перша леді України зверталась до ПАРЄ саме щодо дітей, сімей. Наші парламентарі, наші дипломати добре попрацювали і на всіх рівнях, формальних і неформальних, з лідерами держав на парламентському, урядовому, правоохоронному рівнях, в юридичній спільноті та у міжнародних та міжпарламентських організаціях. Ми продовжимо працювати для повернення усіх депортованих українських дітей та для покарання Росії. Нам достеменно відомі дані майже 20 тисяч дітей, які були вивезені і розпорошені по різних регіонах держави зла. Але очевидно, що це лише частина значно масштабніших злочинних дій. Таких дітей може бути значно більше. Європа і світ вже бачили різні депортації та спроби знищити народи. Саме на російському прикладі відповідальністю цієї держави та її посадовців, винних у геноциді, ми мусимо показати усім іншим потенційним джерелам такого ж зла, що безкарності більше ніколи не буде. А вироки за геноцид будуть. Так само, як і за всі інші злочини Росії проти України і наших людей. У Миколаєві вже завершився розбір завалів на місці ракетного удару, який стався сьогодні вночі. Більше 20 поранених. Одна людина загинула. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким. Ракетами пошкоджені десятки звичайних будинків, 2 навчальні заклади, калібри проти школи і коледжу, проти житлової забудови. Ввечері ще один ракетний удар був завданий по Костянтинівці Донецької області. Пошкоджено теж школу, лікарню, житлові будинки. На жаль, є постраждалі люди. На жаль, юридична машина світу довго набирає обертів. Але набирає. На жаль, політичний тиск світу на державу-терориста, санкційний тиск ще не досягли повної сили. Але досягають. А от наші воїни від першого дня цієї битви на захист людей та людяності роблять абсолютно все можливе. І навіть більше, ніж можливо. Авдіївка, 35-та окрема бригада морської піхоти, Мар'їнка, наша славетна 79-ка, Донецький напрямок в цілому, 55-та окрема артилерійська бригада. Дякую вам, воїни, за незмінну результативність. Запорізький напрямок. Сьогодні, як і завжди, є за що подякувати бійцям нашої 44-ї окремої артилерійської бригади. Молодці. Передав сьогодні письмову подяку воїнам і командиру 95-ї окремої бригади ДШВ, які дуже потужно б'ються поблизу Кремінної на Луганщині. І окремо я хочу подякувати абсолютно усім, хто боронить Бахмут, знищує там ворога так масштабно, як окупант це заслужив. Слава усім нашим воїнам, хто зараз в бою, на бойових постах, у бойових завданнях. Дякую усім в світі, хто нам допомагає. Вічна пам'ять усім, чиї життя забрав російський терор. Слава Україні!
And with that,
And Героям слава!
and slow Ukraine. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on the 428th day of the war in Ukraine. And of course, I have to thank everyone so much once again for watching this news segment. It's always an honor to us that so many of y'all come to the stream each and every night to watch the news as we cover the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And I thank you all so much once again for coming tonight and watching the news. Again, if you did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to put a thumbs up on this video. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button as well, as it lets you keep apprised as when these streams run, and these streams run like clockwork. Every single day of the week, except for Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. You can always count on us to be here, whether it be rain, snow, sleet, or hail, whether we be exhausted or completely burned out or full of energy to the point that we're about to explode, whether we are, whether anything's happening. I mean, hell, we've had a million things happen. I mean, like, we've actually had both of our parents go to the hospital in the middle of the stream, and somehow, even on those days, I don't even know how we did it then, we kept the stream running. We have always been running. We'll always be running until this war ends. And I've got to thank every single one of y'all for always coming here each and every night with us as we cover the past 24 hours of the war, keeping support for Ukraine high, helping us to keep those Sunday fundraisers rolling, and also showing the Ukrainians overseas, like the guys in the 231st Battalion, that there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people just on this channel alone, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions across the entirety of YouTube, that are always watching them and cheering them on as they continue to defend their land and their nation from the Russian invaders. And hopefully one day we'll all be here for the victory that will be coming up maybe in a year's time or even further than that. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching the news segment. We're about to be moving into the question segment where we're going to be addressing all of the super chats that have come in. And of course, I got to thank everyone who throws in a super chat. And also we'll be addressing as many live chats as possible. Last night, we actually got to a lot of them. I think we answered live chats for like 40 minutes, which was one of the longest live chat segments that we've had in a while. And of course, once again, I want to reiterate this. If you enjoy this channel, the only way you really can support us is through super chats. That is the way we keep the thing running, and we got to thank everyone who always make sure to support us, because without y'all support, this would not be possible. We don't run any ads or sponsors or anything like that. So, you know, if you do enjoy the stream, that is really the only way we get supported. The other thing that I'd like to say before we go into the question segment is that you do not have to pay a super chat to have a question answered. But super chats are more so just to support the channel, and if you have a question that you want to have answered, always make sure to throw it in, because we always thank everyone, whether they have a comment on their super chat or not, for helping this channel to keep on running and supporting it. But you do not have to throw one in. This channel is absolutely free. That was the premise since the start. It's really up to you whether you want to support it or not. So just make sure to throw your question into the live chat with the handle, and I'll type it in the live chat real quick, @EnforcerMatt, like this right
hello.
here. And if you see my message in the live chat, put that before your message and then type up your message, and you'll be able to have your question put into the spreadsheet by Enforcer Matt, and then we will make sure to hopefully answer it if we do have the time. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are now moving on into the question segment. And before we get on into the questions, we have to cover the polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and it is time for those polls once again. We have some really good polls going on this time. And the very first one says, Iran has seized an oil tanker in transit to the U.S., and the Navy has responded with a warning. And what are your thoughts? 83% said not good. Iran needs a lesson. 11% said unsure. 2% said we can probably let it go. And 4% said that's fine and not a huge deal. And one thing I have to point out is this oil tanker was in international waters. It was not passing through Iran or anywhere close to them for them to take it in their territorial waters. So I think that is not good at all, and Iran needs a lesson. I think the cover story was it rammed into another ship that Iran had control of or some kind of affiliation with, and that was the excuse they used to seize it. The Navy did send out I believe it was a P-8 Poseidon to go and check out what's happening, but nothing has been done except for a warning. So quite interesting. But Enforcer, what say you?
It sounds to me like they're doing what they did years ago when they seized the British oil tanker, and they're trying to create some kind of a diplomatic incident or a diplomatic play. To be honest, I would say that this one needs to be responded to in full force, considering that it's a U.S. tanker and they seized it in international waters. I would say that we need to send a U.S. carrier group to the area and set up a, yeah, you know what, that'd be a good idea. Set up a no-fly zone in the Persian Gulf where U.S. aircraft enforce Iranian vessels staying within their territorial waters right now, and if they venture into international waters, destroy them. That's honestly what I would do. But then again, that's a little heavy-handed. The administration, or any administration for that matter in charge, may not want to be that heavy-handed in response to the Iranians, but considering that trying to get the Iranians back under control is a major concern in a way of the United States, or at least our strategy and policies going forward, this may be the moment where we want things to kick off, and this may be a good explanation for it. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second poll says, the Ukrainian Prime Minister calls for cooperation with China and refers to Beijing as the Chinese Republic. And what are your thoughts? 65% said Ukraine must choose their words carefully, 17% said unsure, 6% said it can't hurt anything, and 11% said it's a wise move and good strategy. And I'm with the 65%. I was discussing this with the enforcer earlier. I completely disagree with the categorization of calling China a Chinese republic. A republic insinuates the power lies within the people, and obviously in China that is not the case. So kind of interesting choice of words there. Also, I would hold off on calling for just outright cooperation with China until we know more about their motivations. I think that's a little premature. So I would say that definitely need to choose words carefully, and I think Zelensky is setting the proper tone, and I would have to disagree with the tone the Prime Minister is setting. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I hate that we have to listen to a junior minister. In all honesty, why in the world would he call it a republic? Now, it is in the name. It is called the People's Republic of China. That's the official name of China. And I have to go through this again because for some reason, some people don't get it. And I feel like people ought to be educated on official names of countries. China's official name is the People's Republic of China, and the official name for Taiwan is the Republic of China, which is a totally separate country from the People's Republic of China. North Korea, and just to go through this really quickly to kind of lay out that sometimes the names we shorthand things to, that's not really the name. North Korea is actually the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. South Korea is the Republic of Korea. Once again, like China and Taiwan, their official names are very, very similar. They both have the name, both have the words Republic and Korea in them. But whenever you hear People's or Democratic before the word Republic in a country's name, that means they're not really a republic. That is a given rule. You can find that in really any country that has those words put together in a phrase. If it's the People's Republic or a Democratic Republic, there is no semblance of a republic within that country. It's most likely some kind of authoritarian regime that suppresses their citizens, treats them poorly, and they have no idea of democracy or no idea of human rights inside of that country. That's almost a given rule. So calling China a republic, as in the sense they have a democratically elected government, is a very huge stretch. They have nothing of the sort, considering that only 10%, less than 10% of the Chinese population is eligible to vote, because only Communist Party members can vote in elections in China, and there are only 100 million Communist Chinese Party members. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And like Matthew said, I think Zelensky is certainly setting the proper tone while I turn my heater on. And I don't think it's good to try and make the Chinese sound like they're nice people, because one thing we know is that the Chinese are a country to not really be trusted and to be given a wide berth. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says, a U.S. general says that Russia's ground force is bigger today than it was at the beginning of the war, and what are your thoughts? 38% said, can he back that statement up? 36% said it's probably true because he's credible. 11% said U.S. has many conflicting reports, and 14% said unsure. And the individual that made this remark was the commander of the European Command. I can't remember his name right off the bat, but he made that statement, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. If it is true, I will say that if their forces are bigger, they are definitely less trained than they were to start, which was already pretty low. Also, we seem to be getting conflicting reports out of the U.S. because we have Milley saying one thing on one hand, and then we have the commander of EUCOM saying something completely different. So I'm not sure exactly what to believe at this point. I would tend to believe that, it's probably true because the guy is credible. He's the commander of the European forces. But it's kind of caught me off guard a little bit, I have to admit. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be honest. I would have to say that Russian forces may have grown, but obviously they're not of any quality at all. They can have 1 million guys, but, look at what they're doing in Ukraine. Could that really pair up against anyone in Europe right now? Probably not. And I would stick with that statement until the day we went to war. And I'm sure we would see that that's the truth once we go to war, because there's no way in the world that the Ukrainians are able to beat the Russians, yet somehow the Russians will be able to beat the West with superior numbers, because they can't even do that in Ukraine right now. So it's interesting to hear that he said that, but at the same time, I wouldn't really put a lot of stock into numbers, because one thing we learned in Ukraine is that quantity does not equal quality. Quality is a thing entirely separate in and of itself. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Also, Eric Wine Nelson said there are under 100 million members of the CCP. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party.
Wait a minute, CCP opens on Friday.
I
Did you
don't
see
know.
that?
I don't know what CCP that is, but it's the Birmingham area. Cleaning Concepts
Janitorial
Plus.
services.
Okay, good. I was like, there's no way there's a communist party in Birmingham for the Chinese. Anyways, let's see how many members they have. They have 96,710,000. So it's close to 100 million, but it's not close enough. It's 3 million off just about. Also, I like how their slogan is "Serve the people."
Serve the people. No, more like the people serves them.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, there's a lot of slogans like that. We won't go into them though. Let's see. Interesting. This is the site of the first CCC, not the CCCP, the CCP Congress. This is the site of the first one. They've of course made the building into like a shrine or something similar, which is in normal fashion. But anyways, thank you for clarifying that. There's only 97 million members, really. But with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, and our fourth poll says Chinese warships and aircraft appear to be returning to Taiwan in sizable numbers. And what are your thoughts? 35% said China is planning something big, 27% said it's just more Taiwan exercises, and 29% said it's too early to tell, while 9% said unsure. And on this one, I think it's too early to tell what China's up to, but I can tell you from our Twitter post we made earlier that Taiwan says 38 PLA aircraft and 6 vessels have returned to Taiwan. 19 of those aircraft have crossed the median line, and it's unclear how many vessels have crossed the line. But it's certainly a return to the large numbers we saw during the exercises about 2 weeks ago, and definitely concerning. It seems to coincide with a pretty large missile attack tonight that Russia has conducted on Ukraine. So I'm not sure if they're maybe planning something in tandem or not. It's really too early to tell, and that's just pure speculation. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it doesn't seem to be anything large. 6 vessels is nothing. And if they were to ever try and launch a land invasion of Taiwan, they would need certainly more than 6 vessels. Because what's that going to do? Land the police force from Miami Vice? You know, like that's not enough to land anybody in Taiwan. So I'd say it's probably nothing, honestly, and they're just, you know, up to their old shenanigans that they've been up to for well over the length of this war that we see in Ukraine right now. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next poll says, reports claim that Russia's gas exports could fall by 50% by the end of the year, and what are your thoughts? 41% said it's very likely, sanctions are working, 31% said that's wishful thinking, and where is the evidence? 17% said it could happen but unlikely, and 10% said unsure. And I did see this report earlier, and I was thinking it seems like maybe wishful thinking. For sanctions to cut their gas exports in half, that would be pretty extreme. And I'm not sure exactly how far down their gas exports are right now, but it seems probably like wishful thinking. And I will tell you, the source was the New York Times, and that's the only place I found that report from. So take it with a grain of salt, but Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say to take it with a grain of salt as well, because if only the New York Times is reporting it, and it's mainstream news. And y'all know I'm not a big fan of mainstream news. Take it with a grain of salt. So with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And guess what? That is it for our polls.
No.
We are all out of polls, but we do love the polls. We have to make that clear. But we're moving on to our Super Chat questions, and up first, we have one from Cindy Mitchell yet again, who puts in a $50 donation. And Cindy, thank you very much, and that is quite generous of you. She says, OMG, I just left my crazy family hiding for 5 minutes. Tuck is 5 and trying to tape up his cousins, so we call him Tuck Tape. And to the chat, Matt.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I swore, Cindy Mitchell, the first time you said that, I thought you were talking about Tucker Carlson. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I was sitting there, I was like, what does it mean? But now I understand it. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because, of course, folks like you help this channel to keep rolling a lot. And I can't thank you enough because it just means a lot. I don't know how to say it anymore. But we are very appreciative. And I thank you so much once again. And so with that, we'll be taking another question from the live chat. And thank you so much for being a longtime channel legend here in the LSA, and of course helping this channel to keep on rolling as well. And Matthew, have you noticed something? Someone has slipped in tonight, Matthew, that we haven't seen here for a while. At least I haven't. Do you see them?
Who is it? Who is it?
Fly, Eagles, fly. I swear I have not seen him for weeks.
I haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, he's there. He's in the live chat. He's back.
Oh, he sure is back. Let me say hello.
Guess who's back?
Hello.
Back again. What up, man? I'm trying to get hype. I don't know what it is tonight. I just feel dull tonight. I don't know what it is. Hopefully I haven't been coming off as dull. But with that, welcome back to Fly Eagles Fly. I haven't seen him for like weeks, I don't think, or months even. And we welcome you back to the LSA. And so with that, we are on to the live chat question.
All right, and real quick, I have seen a lot of people say it, so we must address it. Tasman006 said the S-300 that you see, 2 of them, that was unfortunately a Lancet drone hitting a Ukrainian S-300.
Let's see here. Let me check that. Another S-300 destroyed by a Lancet drone. And so let's check that again. And let's see, it actually has a damaged tube already right there. But yes, this does actually appear to be a Ukrainian S-300 instead. So you are correct. So unfortunately, I misidentified that one. That is actually a Ukrainian S-300. And we can see that one of the crew members did make a run for it. We don't know about this crew member, however, that was in that S-300. Unfortunate to see, and it appears that I did get that wrong. I thank y'all for correcting me on that, because I did not see that in the live chat. Funnily enough, I've been reading the live chat. I think I saw that once, and I was like, eh. But yes, it is actually a Ukrainian one instead. So sorry about that. Got that wrong the first time. But I hope we clarified that now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to that live chat question requested by Cindy Mitchell, it goes to Vito Lucina, who says, did you guys hear about the RSF taking over the WHO bio facility in Khartoum?
We did hear about that. I've got to be honest, I don't really put a lot of stock into biolabs or bio facilities or places like that getting blown up, because it's not really that big of a deal. Most of these viruses are usually dead, or they're not in any kind of organic matter, so they're like pretty much like dead versions of whatever kind of pathogen or virus or plague they're looking at, and the chances of them ever really infecting anyone is kind of low. And I know Maddie's going, I'm gonna have to stick with my guns on that one. I don't really get freaked out much whenever I hear stuff like that. I heard it actually got blown up today somewhere, and someone had a picture of like black smoke billowing out of a building. I don't know if it was a picture of that building in particular, but I don't really expect much to come of it, to be honest. I could be wrong though. But you know,
on this one, I've seen the scientists freaking out about this facility being taken over. There seems to be more to the story than we're being told. What we do know is the power to the facility has been cut off completely. It's now in control of the forces of the RSF, and there's talk and rumors that they might be trying to use those to weaponize against the enemy. I'm not sure how credible that is. I'm not really sure if they're going to try to blow it up. I really doubt that, honestly, but there is concerns that they'll try to weaponize it.
Interesting. Hopefully they don't, because I feel like military intervention from the West would be imminent at that point, because they wouldn't want plague spreading around the world wildly for no reason, just because of some infighting and really what is economically a backwater country. I mean, like, let's look at this real quick, because I know someone's about to go, Sudan isn't a backwater country. Oh yeah, what about that? What about their GDP that literally dropped and shrank by like 75% over 1 year? That is what I call a backwater economy right there. Like before that, it was actually not doing that bad. It was actually really good. The Sudanese economy was better than the Libyan or the Ethiopian economy by far, but 2018 came and went, and it was not good for the Sudanese, I'll tell you that. It was certainly not good for the Sugandese.
Oh, come on now.
Oh, dang it. Dang it. I thought I'd get you with that. Anyways.
Well, here's another serious question. Why is there a bio lab in Sudan? Like, why is that? Because that seems a little bit odd.
Because a lot of deadly viruses come from the Central African area.
Or it could be there's not a lot of oversight there, so they go put a bio lab there, and then all the scientists start freaking out when it finally gets taken over. If it's truly inert viruses, why are they freaking out?
Well, they could be just freaking out because it's the thing that everyone does. I mean, like hell, someone can breathe in the direction of China, and oh my God, we're going to war. It's like that in the news. So to be honest, I don't really put a lot of. I've got to be honest. I know this isn't really sensational or anything. I never really put a lot of stock into much of this stuff. Like all the freak out hype stuff, like when it looked like China and Taiwan were going to war. Kind of covered that just because most things are really uneventful in life. That's one thing that I've learned through history, is that there's so many things through history that looked like they were about to blow up in everyone's faces, and then it just never does. There's very few things. I mean, like the war in Ukraine is an exception. It isn't the norm. It's very insane. It's insane, actually. It's completely illogical that the war happened, but it did, and it's like one of the most exciting and craziest things to happen of the 21st century so far, rather than the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, or anything else for that matter. But I would honestly have to say I'm not freaking out now. If something did start to happen, though, then I would freak out. But until then, it just is what it is. I'm sure it's not that scary. Anyways, Matthew, I find things more exciting like Dogecoin.
Oh yeah, I saw Charlie Nickel say it's actually a vape flavor lab. That's why they're freaking out. Oh my God, they can't take it over.
Dude, I want that strawberry daiquiri, man. Or that blueberry raspberry or something like that. But anyways, and also, Matthew, I just noticed that someone else has returned.
Who is it this time?
Magic Skygirl's returned.
What?
Yeah, they're in the live chat.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it. Everyone's coming back. But anyways, with that, I have to calm down. I hope we answered that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from none other than Eric N. And thank you very much for the support, Eric. He says, I'm just wondering if the Avenger anti-aircraft system will be able to move and protect the forces from the Russian aircraft when the offensive starts.
Yes, it will, because Avenger Sam. The Avenger Sam is just 8 Stinger launchers mounted onto the back of a Humvee to a turret. So this thing is probably the most mobile surface-to-air missile defense system that the Ukrainians would have, in my opinion. Now, it may not be the most effective. Stingers only have such a range, and they aren't the most effective missile there is, but it can provide that needed air support against Russian helicopters and against Russian aircraft that get a little too close or a little too comfortable. So, in my opinion, I would say, yeah, these will do great. And we'll probably see that these become a backbone of Ukrainian frontline air defense during offensives, considering that they're so mobile and also that they're lightweight, so they can actually travel off-road a good bit without getting bogged down or having to worry about staying on paved areas. So with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. Really good one, by the way. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for sponsoring that live chat question.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from none other than Charlie. Excuse me.
Bless you.
There we go. We have a $20 super chat from Charlie Nickel, and sorry about that, Charlie. I absolutely coughed all over your super chat. But real quick, before we read off this super chat, I want to call out Charlie for sending us some really cool t-shirts to the P.O. box. He got almost every single channel meme and put it on a shirt front and back. And he even got a cutout of Mr. Corgi and put it on the front of the shirt too. And we were absolutely like marveling at all those memes earlier when it came in. Also, I can't even speak tonight. Chris Entwistle. He sent us a model Bobcat. It was a big one this time. We got I think it was I don't know what the scales are, 136, I think. It was a larger Bobcat.
I think it was
it might have been.
I think it may have been I'm trying to think, like a 1/24th scale model. It was something big. It was a really nice model.
Super cool. It also rolls on its own and everything too. So I was super stoked to get that. So big shout out to you, Chris and Charlie, for sending us that really cool stuff. And real quick before we read Charlie's off, Enforcer, what say you?
And I've got to say, thank you for sending the shirts. That was really cool. We really like the shirts, and they're all dry fit too. And that's nice. I don't actually own a lot of dry fits. You're really the first person that has gotten me introduced into dry fits. But I got to thank you so much for sending them. And Charlie Nickel said, I need to get a life. This is your life. The LSA is your life. But still, thank you so much for the shirts. And now let's hear the super chat.
All right, and Charlie said, it looks like tanks can be sitting ducks in warfare, but especially nowadays with the addition of drone attacks, How will the Ukrainians protect the Leopards, Abrams, and other military equipment in the offensive?
The Leopards and Abrams will most likely be protected with a pretty decent array of air defense systems. They may even give these tanks anti-drone guns or keep a unit moving around with them that has an anti-drone gun to try and bring the drones down. Because one thing that we know that the Ukrainians do incredibly well is air defense. They do air defense way better than the Russians can, and on top of that, the Russians don't have or use drones to the same level that the Ukrainians do. Their drone organization is much more relaxed, and they have far fewer numbers than the Ukrainians, so they don't really have to worry about the drones attacking the tanks all that much. They would really more so have to worry about those tanks being hit by AT mines, really, than they would be from being attacked by a drone. So that's most likely the way they'll be dealing with it, is anti-drone guns, air defense units hanging out behind the tanks or around the tanks, or they may do a combination of them all and then just pray that there's not a lot of them, because they don't really have many. And a drone like the Lancet, even if it did get through, it doesn't have enough armor piercing power to punch through the armor of a Leopard or an Abrams or a Challenger from any direction, so they are safe in that category as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, Charlie, and the shirts as well, because it does help this channel to keep on running, and the shirts also help us to keep nice and clothed, because who doesn't like being clothed? I like being clothed. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Fly Eagles Fly. Well, I won't say speaking of the devil, because we already went over that earlier, but it's good to see you again, Fly Eagles Fly. He puts in a $20 super chat and says, "Here's $20, smiley face."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Fly Eagles Fly. Also, welcome back. We haven't seen you in a long time, and I hope you've been all right. Because a while ago, I was actually talking about on stream, I said to Matthew and Aaron, I was like, you know, what's interesting is that Fly Eagles Fly used to be on here daily until the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, and then he disappeared. And I was like, where'd he go? It's like, I hope he's okay. And it is good to know you're all right, and I'm glad to have you back. And also, thank you for the $20 for the hell of it, because of course the support means a lot. Y'all are the only thing that helped this channel to keep rolling. I say that so much. I really don't know if I should say that as much as I do or not, but I really do want y'all to know y'all are the only thing that sits in between us being able to exist or not. And especially in the modern day, as people, I guess you could say, pay more or less attention in some ways to the war. Really just people come back whenever it becomes sensational. That really is the way things are. But I got to thank you so much for keeping our channel in mind, because of course we rely on viewer support as our only form of income on this channel to keep this thing rolling. And without folks like y'all, it wouldn't be possible for long. You know, we could probably go we probably go a few months and then we'd shrivel up. But I got to thank you so much once again, Fly Eagles Fly, for the support. And I've got to thank you so much once again, because we, well, I won't get into that, but still, thank you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Flash1, who puts in a $17 donation, and thank you very much for the support. And sadly, no comment to address on this one. But Flash1, it's good to see you once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would say thank you for the support. Can you reread that one again, actually? I was distracted there for a second.
There was nothing in it.
Well, can you reread their names?
Flash1, who puts in a $17 donation.
And I think the Flash, the Flash, like from the show. Wait, is that the Flash 1? So he's like the original Flash.
Yes, I don't think there's a second.
Well, there's this Flash.
I think that's the first.
Tom Cruise has seen the Flash movie and he loved it. My question is,
thank God.
Yeah, my question is, who cares? I mean, like, you know, I don't mean to be rude or anything about this article, but who really cares if he liked it? It's like, you know what? Like, can people not make an opinion? They have to wait for Tom Cruise to say whether he likes it or not to like it? I don't know. Anyways, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because you're helping us to keep the gears running in the background, helping us to keep the lights on and everything else in between. And of course, it means a lot to us, because y'all are the life's blood of this channel and make it possible. That's one thing, you know, that's one thing I was just thinking about, Matthew. That's always weird to me, is that sometimes haters ridicule this channel because we read out the super chats and we thank y'all for supporting it. And I don't really understand where they're coming from, because I want y'all to know that we do greatly appreciate y'all supporting the channel, you know, and y'all are the only way we support it. So why in the world would I not be appreciative of y'all being our supporters, or really our sponsors in a way to help this thing to keep rolling? I don't know why people act like that's a bad thing to do. I would much rather thank y'all for helping us to keep it running than run sponsors or ads or something else and then just act like it's nothing. And anyways, that would also be kind of tacky too. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Flash One, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Melissa Smith, Major Bobcat Detonator, and she says, congratulations on the upcoming graduation, and here's some money for coffee fund, since you'll need a lot of it soon, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for the support to the coffee fund and helping us to get a little cup of coffee. Graduation is coming right around the corner. I think it's not that... Actually, it isn't that far at all from now. I think it's just a couple of days at this point. And I've got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and also helping us get some coffee because, man, I got to tell you, it's going to be rough these next few days because we have to get up really, really, really early to go to the graduation. It's not a late night thing. So... Well, if it was a late night thing, I'd just skip graduation. I'd just run the stream. But I've got to thank you so much once again for the support to the Coffee Fund. Of course, the Coffee Fund helps us to drink busy, at least in my case, and absolutely get zooted on caffeine. And of course, thank you so much once again for support and wishing us our best on the graduation day because it is soon. It's very soon. Hopefully we don't get a statuette or anything on that day either, because I'd be very concerned if someone came up and gave us a weird award or something like that.
Yeah, I would be too.
And so with that, I thank you so much.
You didn't know where to go after that.
Yeah, I didn't know where to go. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. Saw a very interesting question come in there, Matthew. It looks like we won't be answering that one. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Dupper Bob, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you very much, Dupper, for the support. And guess what he says?
Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraine and Herom Slava.
Oh, Slava Ukraini. Herom Slava. This great nation of Ukraine has persisted for an incredibly long time. Like Rabbi Philip said, to heck with the haters. And we're going to keep this thing running. Slava Ukraini.
And we're going to keep this thing rolling. And TJS said, and keeping the Enforcer's heater working. That does do that too. I think the heater's about on its final legs, to be honest with y'all, because it makes this weird noise sometimes now. And I think that it might just be getting tired. It's been running for like the whole stream ever since it started and a year before that. So I think this little thing is getting worn out at this point. But still, moving on from that, thank you so much once again for the support, Dupper Bob. Dupper Bob, I don't think you ever missed a single day of supporting this channel with those consistent $2 super chats, and we thank you so much for it because we're greatly appreciative of the support, and it does help us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, take a live chat question.
And thank you so much for the support, CK Bold. It does help us out a lot. I'm trying to figure out how to answer that one because I've been trying to come up with new things to say. To ones that don't really have a question in them. And I'm really having a hard time. I'm really raking my brain. I'm not really coming up with much, but I do thank you for the support, CK Bold, and helping this channel to keep on running, and we will make sure to get one from the live chat. That was a very kind thing that was started a while ago. The history of the live chat is something incredible. You see, it was started way back in the day by Tangam Brygiri, who is a longtime channel viewer and an old guard. And he asked that we take a question from the live chat. It was either him or BC Skyman. It was, both of them, I think, did it on the same night, but it's been lost to time who was really the first one. But they started the trend of supporting the channel and then allowing the question to go to the live chat instead. And that has been a tradition that is kept on this channel ever since. It's really a kind tradition. And I thank you so much once again, CK Bold, for keeping up an LSA tradition of sending it to the live chat. And so let's send it to the live chat, Matthew. What do we got?
All right. And this one goes to Kella Hella, who says, can we expect a DevGru operation for the seized oil tanker near Iran?
I honestly couldn't tell you. Last time this happened, it was with the British. We didn't see any kind of operation happen. There was some kind of an agreement or an exchange made, and the crew and the ship was released eventually after something like 80 or 90 days. I don't know if we'll be seeing an operation like that any time around. really at this point, everything's up in the air because it just happened and we don't even see a real response from the U.S. government yet about the situation. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And I hope we answer that the best we can.
Oh my god, did you see that bot I just took out? Man, I was dying. I had to mute my mic for a minute to laugh at that one.
No, it's not the coffee we're worried about. You need to lay off the crack. Oh, man, that one's lame. That one's just lame.
I thought it was pretty good. I was over here dying at it.
Oh man, well, it's actually a pretty good one, I'll admit. But it's not as good as Amerifatti. Amerifatti is the best one we ever got, ever. I haven't seen anything top Amerifatti yet. But still, I mean, that's the best they could come up with. Man, hell, I'm not even a drug user. It's like what kind of history or record does that have to make that actually sting? Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Psyops. And thank you, Psyops, for the support. And of course, it's good to see you once again. And he says, let's see here. He puts in a sketchy one. Can you believe it or not?
Oh,
let me
it's going to
copy
review.
and paste it and send it to the review. It is going there right now.
Ding, 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 ding. Let's see. Let's see. Just settled all my artillery. Yeah, Matt, need tractor video. Can't make it much longer. Texas stinks. Oh, we can read off that part. The first part, however, I mean, like, it was rough. I do thank Psyops for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would have to say, Texas does not stink. I'm going to still stick with that. Every state in the United States is made equal. They all suck. I'm just kidding. They don't all suck. I know someone's about to get really offended by that and go, hey, Wyoming doesn't suck, or something like that. No, they're fine. It's just that every single place has a problem. It's different in some places, not so different in others. But, you know, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Anyways, Texas does not stink. It doesn't at all. It reeks. And let's see, what else? Let's see. Need a tractor video. We sadly can't get a tractor video, at least at the moment. We haven't seen tractors in action ever since the beginning of the war, because it appears
That the tractor became a somewhat extinct or endangered species. Examples of the Ukrainian tractor are hard to come by.
And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Sabs. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support, Sabs, and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because without folks like you, it wouldn't be possible. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and we have another one from Psyops. We have another $10 super chat, and this one says, let's see here. This one says it's going to review.
Was that what you were typing in the Discord earlier? Because I had the Discord DM open, it said Enforcer Matt typing. I was like, what is he typing in there?
Yep.
Let's see. I don't know what that thing is. Let me pull that up on the second screen.
What could this be, maybe?
Let's see, hang on. I'm looking at it. 1 second. I gotta find... let me go see if there's a copyright on this video. Okay, so it appears that there isn't. We can play this video. It's apparently a fictional thing, so...
For a number of years now, work has been proceeding in order to bring perfection to the crudely conceived idea of a transmission that would not only supply inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters. Such an instrument is the turboencabulator. Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it is produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive diractance.
Dude, I feel like we're listening to one of those war bloggers that uses flash words for everything. I feel like we're listening to that right now, but in like Ford form.
And also, this guy went on later to found one of the world's most successful defense companies and bring this marketing to the masses.
And that was Lockheed Martin. Oh man! But you know what? This guy gives me the kind of vibe like, you know, when he's happy he says, well, I don't know if I can say it like that, but women of promiscuity love my mustache, and when he's not happy, he says, this time I'm gonna do it. This guy gives me that kind of vibe.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fam. The latter consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The
Wait a minute. Do you know how good your memory has to be? Do you know how good your memory has to be to remember all of these buzzwords? This guy is a genius, like in some way or another.
I have a feeling they actually have a teleprompter right off camera, so that way if he loses his spot, he can kind of pick back up on it. Because I wouldn't be able to remember all this crap, no matter how many times you got me to rehearse these lines. This would be impossible to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't even think they have a teleprompter because he's not looking at anything like trying to read from. He just keeps like looking at the paper and then back at the camera.
Wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Has Pacatang been around? Because I swear, I haven't seen him for like days or weeks, and I just saw him in the live chat.
Man, Pacatang's been here for days.
What the hell? Like, I've never seen him in the live chat. What happened? What? I bet you can't do a push-up, fatty, a lion two-faced pony soldier. But anyways, we're gonna let this thing keep rolling because this is interesting.
Lotus O delta type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator. Every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the Grammys. The turboencabulator has now reached a high level of development, and it's being successfully used in the operation of Nofertrunians. Moreover, whenever a fluorescent score motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal repleneration. It's not cheap, but I'm sure the government will buy it.
Hey, see, he's a defense guy.
Oh my god, he works for the damn people at whatchamacallit, base systems. This is base systems.
Yes.
Right?
High prices, and he's trying to sell it to the government.
You see that smug look right there? That is the look of a defense contractor in action right there. He knows they're going to buy it. He knows they're going to buy it. This is sickening. This is sickening, I must say. Not a fan. Not a fan at all. I'm just kidding. Actually, it was pretty funny. It was like, that is... And someone actually said that the Star Trek writers came up with the script. I don't know if they were joking or not, but if y'all aren't joking, I wouldn't doubt it. That sounded like Star Trek lingo. But anyways, in the end, he said, he's speaking, boop, and he is. He is. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much for the support, Psyops, and sharing that with us, because that is certainly a whole-on meme. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Cliff H, who says, charge of the Kubotas. Ukraine will rig 300 tractors and earth movers with RC to be the tip of the spear on the offensive and bury Russia in the trenches and make the Russian big guns reveal positions legendary.
If they did that, I would actually be blown away if they had 300 remote-controlled tractors. That would be the funniest start to an offensive we would have ever seen, and I actually would highly encourage that to happen. I would be a big fan of watching that happen in real time. So I thank you for the support. Really cool idea, and that may be something that they might try and do, because we see that drones are becoming a large part of the battlefield in the modern world, and that may be another direction it's heading in. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from E3ECO, who says, for the Anti-Watermark Fund.
And thank you for the support to the Anti-Watermark Fund. We here at Anti-Watermarks LLC always try our best to remove the watermarks from every single video. You may have seen me on the last video able to swipe the watermark off at the last 10 to 20 seconds, but of course, we need even more support to expand our efforts and operations into other avenues of anti-watermark enforcement. We have been trying to remove the watermark off the past 20 seconds rather than the past 15 seconds of the video, and of course, more funding is needed. defeated. For this reason, we have reached out to the United States Congress to ask them to allocate some funding or special federal grants towards this program to make sure that we can help to remove the watermarks, and not only the watermarks, but even in the future, the copyrighted music off of these video clips, to let them in their natural form be seen for all of their glory. I thank you so much once again for beginning this momentous step in this campaign and program to remove the watermarks from as many seconds of the video as possible. You are helping us to get to that next 5 seconds of removing the watermark from each video, and thank you so much once again for the support. We'll of course be passing this suggestion on to the U.S. Congress under House Resolution number 1,191,000,000,000 or something, whatever. So with that, thank you once again. Hope that addresses that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Laura Carr, who puts in a $10 super chat, and thank you very much, Laura, for the support. She says, just to let you know, I'm in favor of narration. You guys have great radio voices, and I listen while multitasking. And thank you very much for that. Very kind compliment, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. We actually, the reason why the narration was removed a little bit for one night is because people complain like about everything, and the people who complain say a lot more stuff than the people that are happy with whatever exists. And you know, when we've run this YouTube channel at the start, I used to say at the start, you know, people who complain, whatever, a lot of people like it, but after you sit here for a while and you sit here long enough, those people that complain, they actually seem that while they're a very small group, they talk so much that they're actually quite sizable in terms of the feedback you get. And so it looks like a lot of people want the narration to end, and then nobody wanted the narration to end when we actually ended it. So I thank you for the support and wanting the narration to continue, and I thank you so much for the compliment as well as saying we have radio voices. I personally don't think I have a radio voice. I think I just kind of have a normal voice. This is the way I've talked my whole life, and I have annoyed my mother and father to great lengths talking in this voice for hours on end. So to me, it's tell them. But to me, it's just another voice. But to a lot of folks, they say it's a radio voice. I hear that from everyone, and it really blows me away when people say that, because my entire life, I've been trying to work my way out of this voice. That's why I can do so many other voices. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. No respect. I grew up with this voice. Everyone goes, hey, you have a radio man voice. And my parents said, oh, man, radio, more like put it in the bathtub with them. Oh, man, I'm terrible. I'm telling you. And then I also do this voice as well.
Oh, no.
A lot of people always talk about this voice. And I gotta tell you, it's one of the best. People have been saying it's not bad at all. Even people like Rosie O'Donnell and Chuck Schumer have been saying things about this. Whoa, hey, keep it easy down there. I'm about to come down there and beat your ass, Jim Acosta. But anyways,
you know, at least though, you get to have your voice like at the quality that the mic picks up. Mine gets compressed and all screwed up by the Discord call, and then it goes over to you, and it's all garbled sounding. So I don't get the full effect of having a nice mic.
It's all right. It's not that bad. It's not terrible. It's still legible. We can listen to it. Although it's not as great as mine, mine is the best. It is the best all around. Nobody can top it. Even people in North Korea, they're saying, I can't even get on the computer, but this has got to be the best voice and the best microphone that there's ever been. It's bigly. It's bigly.
Wait a minute. Agent 86 said, as long as you don't have a radio face. Like, what does that mean? Ugly? Like a radio face?
Oh, man, well,
he just insulted everybody in the radio industry.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I get no respect. I sit there and I get a podcast set, and then people go, huh, you're ugly. I said, I already knew that. What the hell are you talking about? But still, thank you for the support, and thank you for the kind words as well. And I hope that does address that fairly well as well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because, of course, we rely on the support, and it does mean a lot. I don't want to go overboard with that because, you know, it is what it is. But thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $9 super chat from Brent Nansit. And thank you very much, Brent, for the support. He says, counterattack should begin before fall of Bakhmut. Russia knows they need to defend, but need a victory to prop them up politically and socially. Russia in an offensive posture and makes them vulnerable.
And I thank you for the support. it would be good to start the offensive if the Ukrainians had the ability to before Bakhmut was over. The thing is, though, is that we actually think that there's a large amount of Ukrainian forces that would be used in the counteroffensive that are currently in reserve for the Battle of Bakhmut. And so for those units to be freed up on both sides, the Ukrainians will have to eventually have the Battle of Bakhmut end, where the Russians, of course, once they take the city, they're going to declare some kind of a pause for exhaustion reasons, and then the Ukrainians can use those forces to conduct an offensive elsewhere. The Russian forces, even after the battle, will probably be exhausted enough that they won't be able to be moved to a front line quick enough and be effective there to really stop the offensive. So, with that, I see what you're saying. That would be a great idea, but I think there may be some limitations there that stop that from happening. But if it could happen, that would probably be the best result. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Davis Campbell said, Enforcer looks good, though. Oh, man, I'm telling you. That's the first time anyone said that. That's the first time anyone said that in the live chat. Matthew gets all the simps. Oh, man, what do I get? I just get some... Oh, I get nothing. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, that...
Wait, JDR24 said, your voice, and talking to me, your voice sounds like you look like Grand Thumb. And while I'm at it, I just want to say, if you've ever jumped on a video and thought you heard someone that sounds like Grand Thumb, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
And of course, we're sponsored by the Sonoran Desert Institute.
Yes, he always has the same sponsor every video.
Dude, I mean,
but
like,
we're not sponsored by him.
Oh no, we're not sponsored by him. We're not sponsored by him. But I mean, like, hell, if that is your sponsor, he reps that sponsor, man. You got to give him a lot of credit. He will live and die by that sponsor, the Sonoran Desert Institute. Apparently, they must be a great sponsor as well, because some of the stuff they get to play with is amazing. I don't know if they get it or if they have people who give that to them or something. But what really blew me away is when they made that episode with the brand new Sig Sauer weapons, and they actually had a Sig representative there with the guns at their range. I was like, man, how in the hell did they pull that off? That was really crazy, actually. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Amara Fatty, who puts in a $5 donation. And I have to admit tonight, I'm absolutely like having a coughing issue. I don't know what's got it acting up again. I haven't had this problem for a while, but it's going hard tonight. But Mayor Fatty says first super chat, and he was the first super chat tonight. And thank you very much for the support.
And thank you so much for the support of Mayor Fatty and helping this channel to keep on running. I remember back in the day, Mayor Fatty, when you used to be called Fuchsia Cone, and your little profile picture was like of a pink triangle with a white background on it. I remember that all the way back then. And every time I hear a Marifatti, I always think of Fuchsia Cone, because that's how you came onto this channel. As really, honestly, whenever y'all change y'all's names on us, we remember your original name so much better than the second name. So whenever I hear a Marifetti, I always think Fuchsia Cone. I'll always remember all of our viewers as the way they came in to the stream. But I still thank you so much once again for the support of Marifetti. You were the first one of the night, actually. And I thank you so much for racing to be first. There was no super chat race like Mark did a while ago that came in, but it was still greatly appreciated nonetheless. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is the only way we can keep this thing rolling. And it honestly flatters us a lot that people support this channel to help it to keep rolling. We don't have to rely, well, we really couldn't even rely on AdSense anyways, but we don't run ads, we don't have sponsors, we don't have anything. We just have y'all. And I got to thank y'all so much for that. We try our best to make sure that this stream delivers every single night to where it seems to be worth supporting. And I'm glad to know that we've been able to meet the mark, Marifetti. And I thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Commander COVID-19, who says, I made rabbit with mustard sauce tonight, and I hope everyone's eating well tonight.
Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
I can't repeat it.
Put it in the Discord. Put it in the Discord real quick.
Okay. Let me grab it real quick. Oh, goodness. You see it?
Oh, no! Oh, no! We can't read that.
I wish I could repeat that. If it wasn't for the YouTube censorship, we could repeat it, and y'all could all die of laughter, but sadly, definitely can't read that off.
No, we can't. We can't read that one off ever. Oh, man. Reread the super chat again. That just threw me off. Reread the super chat.
So Commander COVID-19 says, I made rabbit with mustard sauce tonight, and I hope everyone's eating well.
And I thank you so much for the support. and I've never eaten a rabbit before. I would love to eat rabbit. You know, if anything I've learned from eating a gator, it's that new meats can be delicious. Because gator meat is unbelievably good. So I would love to try some rabbit meat, and eventually we will. The closest thing I've ever gotten to eating a rabbit is Welsh rarebit. That's, I think, the closest Matthew and me have gotten, and that is literally just cheese on toast. It's pretty much like a grilled cheese without the other piece of bread. You can see.
Didn't they
right
used
there.
to like call it rare bit to try to con the Welsh people into thinking they were buying rabbit?
No, actually, it was a joke because the English absolutely despised the Welsh at the time and Welsh-speaking people. So they were like, you know what'd be funny is to mess with their silly language. And we're Welsh, by the way, so we're not saying that's a silly language because, you know, I actually like it. But anyways, they're like, you know what would be funny is to mess with their silly language and make it sound like it's Welsh rabbit as a joke, but it's really just bread and cheese because they're poor. And then they made it. And so for all time, people who hear the dish, they'll go, oh, that sounds like it's Welsh for rabbit. And then they order it and then it's just cheese on toast and they're greatly disappointed. Kind of like how we were disappointed with Bristol. Because I'm just kidding. Bristol isn't even in Wales; it's actually in England. But still, when the world even got us onto the Welsh rarebit thing?
It was, you know, he had a rabbit with mustard sauce.
Oh yeah. So rabbit with mustard. I'll have to try that eventually. But I think this is the closest I've ever gotten so far. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. George Roberta said, "We love the Welsh. We do. We love the Welsh. I mean, we're largely British, mostly Welsh. And you know, and I have a huge respect for the Welsh. It's a really cool country. It's beautiful as well. Throughout the entire thing, I never saw a part of Wales that was ugly. And that's something because some places in Alabama and America are passable. Like you could just go without ever seeing them. But Wales was not like that through any of it. So with that, wait a minute. Did they just rename Snowdonia National Park on Google Maps? Because I swear, up until now, it was Snowdonia National Park. And now they've changed it to the Welsh name for the national park and then put Snowdonia in parentheses. I feel like they just changed that.
I think it was called Snowdonia before.
Yeah,
That's
I think
different.
it was. Yeah, I think they just changed the name of that. Interesting.
Also, do you call? Is it okay to call Welsh people? Good to call them whales?
No, no, it ain't. Nah, man. What you're thinking about is my 600-pound life. That's
I knew it was coming.
Oh well, you know, you set it up. I had to dunk it. So with that, we are driving. And Luton said, "Avoid Swansea." Oh, believe me, believe me, we did. I think we drove through Cardiff and Newport on our way over there. Well, we drove through Cardiff and Newport while we were there. Cardiff is interesting. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to say anything bad about Cardiff, but Cardiff was a little rough. Like once you got out of like the very center of downtown, near Cardiff Castle right here, like this is the nice part of town. Everything else, it was a little rough. And I actually have a friend who lives in Cardiff, and he told me that there's actual gang wars on the outskirts of the city, like at like St. Mellons and places like Thornhill, where there's literally just gunfights in between drug gangs. And I was like, what?
Oh, remember we saw that guy on the street, like around the castle, you know, shirtless, and I think don't remember for certain. He had some kind of knife like on his belt or something.
Man, I remember those folks who came riding into the middle of downtown Cardiff on like that horse thing. It was like the two-wheeled horse carriage. I forgot what it's called, but like they were dressed up like man, hell, they were dressed up like football hooligans doing this. And that was the weirdest thing because it looked like something that, like, I guess posh people would do. But then the people who were doing it looked like they would get off of the cart and, like, stab you for money. And, like, I was like, this is the weirdest, like, juxtaposition of like, images that you could imagine. But Cardiff was pretty cool. Newport, I think we drove through Newport, actually, like, through the town itself. I forgot what Newport looked like, though. Trying to think.
Like a big cigarette, and it smelled of smoke.
Yeah, just big cigarette. And interestingly enough, everyone always wanted a menthol Newport. But anyways.
Look at that nice river though going through Newport. It looks like it's been smoked in for about 1,000 years.
The river Usk. That's what you say when cigarette butts fall on you. You go Usk. But let's see here. Let's look at this river. Oi, bruv, you looking for a fight, huh? You think you'd blow your face out? Let's see here. Oh, I remember this river. It was empty
Oh
like
my
this when we went
God.
through.
That is nasty looking. Jeez, it looks like a sewer pit.
Well, it's low tide, Matthew. It's low tide.
I mean, still though, jeez.
Well, man, you should have seen the River Thames back in the 19th century. They poured so much sewage into the Thames River in London that people said it reeked of dead corpses all day long, and you couldn't even really see the water. It was just like this like film of dead gunk and trash floating on the top of it that was all like black and oily looking. Like, I mean, you know, rivers are nasty. Any river in a major city is nasty. If you fall in there, you pretty much have to go to a hospital right afterwards because they're that contaminated. And that's been a thing since the beginning of time. That's nothing new. But anyways.
Oh, look, you can see where the pollution ends too. It gets like less dirty down there, Chelsea on the left side.
Oh, no. That's like sediments and stuff. Because nowadays the River Thames is actually a lot cleaner than it was way back in the day. It still has raw sewage. I think that floods like right into it, so you know, still don't go in it. But
they don't know how to modernize that kind of stuff these days.
well, I mean, it is tough. It's really tough to modernize sewer systems because in most places in London, the sewer system was built before the city had even grown out there. So it's really hard to, like, you know, go rip up the sewer system underground and then make a new one. It's incredibly expensive. And most of London's sewer system is from, like, the mid to late 19th century still. And they built it large enough back then that it could accommodate like millions of people, much more than there were living in London at that point. So it works. It's just that it flows into the river. So, you know, it's got its downsides to it. At least you don't smell it, though. You know, that's the bright side. At least you don't smell it anymore because they're not dumping, like, animal carcasses in there from, like, the butchery or something. But, anyways, that is a part of living in a city. And on top of that, I have to say this. I still have to say this. At least it's not as bad as China, where it literally is like the Thames River on most rivers in the 19th century right now. It's terrible over there from what I've heard. And William Evans said, crap happens. It do be like that. And then Max this guy goes, well, that just blew my food segment to hell. Maybe, but you know, it's still delicious. Looks like soup. Anyway, so that we're on to the next. Thank you once again for the support. I hope we answered that fairly well.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Slava Something, who says, I think I speak English well enough that I might try to learn how to understand Morse code. Seeing Dark Warriors say how easy it is made me curious.
And I thank you for the support, and hopefully you do try, because it's really cool to know that people actually understand the Morse code to decipher it every single night, or to read it, because they get very angry whenever I say decipher it, but I say that every night, because I don't really know how else to say it. But still, I hope you do. Dark Warrior 137, he's very skilled with it. Of course, he's going to make it sound easy, but I'm sure that if you put your mind to it, it is easy. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Trister1, who puts in a $5 donation and says, or the Chechens may need to worry about rebellion. They've done it twice, and no reason to assume they're all Kadavarites.
Can you reread that one again real quick?
Or the Chechens may need to be worrying about rebellion. They've done it twice, and no reason to assume they're all Kadavarites.
And I would certainly agree, they're not all Kadavarites, and that is something that they probably are concerned about. Problem is, however, is that Chechnya's population has been devastated through the two Chechen wars, especially the Second Chechen War, and so there aren't really that many people living in Chechnya compared to back then, to put it in the best terms possible. Most of them live in Grozny, where the Kadyrovite Chechens can keep a good eye on them. So with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, but a very good point. Hopefully, we'll see that the Chechens rebel again, because they have a good right to. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a $5 donation and says, congrats, Russia, you took Bakhmut. Only costed the entire armored force and PMC allies and the collapse of your entire nation. Only 1,000 more cities to go.
Hey, Lego Slava Russia, or whatever the hell they say. Anyways, I would have to agree with that. it's a congratulations to Russia, a great congratulations. And I'd have to say, the Russian soldiers that have been fighting over Bakhmut, they've been cooked not just to being well done by the Ukrainian army, they've been cooked to congratulations. And I would have to certainly say, it's cost them everything for a town that really means nothing. Of course, a lot more weight has been put on Bakhmut nearer to the later end of the battle than it was at the start, but it still has no significance whatsoever as a city. Its position, there's really nothing you can do with it. So with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Coril Danilo, who puts in a 5 and says, shocked. I can still super chat. Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini. And I mean, like, you could still super chat. I don't know why it would be.
Why is he shocked?
Why is shocked? Why is so shocked? But still, thank you.
Oh, when he went to touch his keyboard, it shocked him, like the metal.
Thank you for the support. And
He was shocked. He got shocked by the computer, and he's surprised he can still super chat.
That is pretty interesting. That's a pretty interesting idea, man. Maybe he got electrocuted. I don't know. But still, I am very shocked that you sent in super chat. Thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you do make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Chewbacca's Secret Love Child, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, I forgot that YouTube takes some money, and thank you for being amazing dudes. And thank you very much for the compliment.
And thank you so much for the support. And he said, I forgot YouTube takes money. They take 30% of every single super chat. They actually take a little bit more than that because they include like processing fees and all that stuff. So they really take something like 35% reality, which is kind of annoying because, you know, there's all kind of silly stuff that I've heard people say. And one of them is that, oh, look, you know, they're not going to kill it. And it's like, no, when YouTube comes in and they take their bit, we don't really make that much. But we do it that way, so that way you all have an assurance that you all know where it's going and it's clearly divided. And also, we get to recognize each person who supports us this way as well. So that's why we do it that way. But still, thank you for the support. Help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to keep it running. And with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Eric S., who says, thank you for all the good work you put in, and take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much for supporting us and our work to help us to keep this thing running. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. And so with that, what do we got?
All right, and the question from the chat is going to go to JB, who says, I heard that the witch has been killed in action, and have you heard and can you confirm?
I have not heard that the witch has been killed in action. We heard the Mendyar had been killed in action a good while ago, and that was markedly untrue, and it was Russian propaganda. So I cannot confirm that the witch is dead, and that's not supposed to be a joke. But I cannot really confirm whether she's dead or not at the moment. So I'll be trying to look into that and see if there's any proof to that claim, or if it's something similar to the claims about Mendyar. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Davis Campbell said 35% ripoff artist. I'm not going to say anything against it because, you know, we're on YouTube and we agree to that when we signed the content creator monetization thing and went through all of that. We knew that it was going to be about that figure, but it is still really aggravating in a way because, you know, they take 35% and then another 30% is taken in taxes. So, you know, you sit there at the end of it all and you're making a third of what people think you really are making. And, you know, then it's like, well, dang. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to EE Transmit and also Dubsy Dabster, excuse me, for each putting in a $2 super chat. Sadly, no comments to address, but thank you Dubsy and EE for the support, and we do appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Madison Music Teacher, who says, thanks for all you do, especially the fundraising. I mailed y'all a DVD that has the book I put together about my grandpa's World War II experiences, and enjoy.
And thank you so much for the support, Madison Music Teacher, and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, without your support, it wouldn't be possible to keep this thing rolling. Now, we will make sure to find that DVD and watch it, because that would be really interesting to hear. And, you know, it would be pretty interesting nonetheless. Also, by the way, just wanted to update y'all real quick. Speaking of a story, the drone is going to be on the way to the Ukrainians in the 231st Battalion very soon. actually quite soon. And so y'all should eventually be seeing a video on that probably within the next few weeks, I would assume. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope you all enjoyed that bombshell of a little bit of info. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $7 super chat from Gramer, excuse me, who says, Enforcer, with the millions of barrels of oil used each day around the world, where does all the used oil go? And LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Gramer. And that oil is burned up and either enters the atmosphere as particulates, or it kind of just seeps into the ground. Some of it just seeps into the ground. Not a lot of it, though. Most of it's burned. So most of the particulates end up in the atmosphere. Interestingly enough, it's not as bad for cars as people think. A lot of people think that cars are the main pollutant of the world because there's so many of them. The fact of the matter is that there are a few large cargo ships that transport some of the largest amounts of cargo per ship in the world, and they actually produce more, I guess you could say, pollutants for about 6 or 7 of those large vessels than all of the cars in the world do combined. And it's pretty shocking because the kind of fuel that they use is called bunker C oil, which has a large amount of sulfur dioxide in it. And it's not really carbon dioxide, much like many people believe, that is the real, I guess you could say, greenhouse gas. It's actually sulfur dioxide that is more so detrimental to greenhouse gases than anything else. At least that's what I've been told in college. So with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well. But all of it ends up burned, and all of it ends up pretty much in the air. Kind of wild to think about, because at this very moment you could be breathing in oil that's been burned in some way, shape, or form. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Mark Gagne for putting in a $2 donation, and thank you very much for the support, and sadly no comment to address. And also, shout out to Mark Andre Brunette, who put in a 3 as well. And thank you both very much for the support, and Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank y'all both for the support as well, because y'all have always been watching this channel and have supported us to keep this thing running, and I gotta thank y'all so much, both, for the support. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, Dean London puts in a $2 super chat and says, I'm printing drone bodies to send to Ukraine.
That's pretty cool. We're getting a drone to send to Ukraine. We're not printing them. It's not as cool as that, but we are getting one. And I wish you the best of luck in that, and I hope that they all get over there in fine shape and that the Ukrainians can use them. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for sharing that with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Loren Natsky, who puts in a $2 super chat and says, where are the Leopard 1s and the A-10s in Slav Ukraine?
The Leopard 1s, from what we know, they're making their way there. The A-10s are not even on the table from what we understand. But the Leopard 1s are on the way, and we should see them maybe in a few months' time or even earlier than that. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are now fully out of super chat questions, so we will be moving right into our live chat questions. And up first, we have one from Kenneth Prochak, who says, the Caliber missiles come from outside Ukraine border, and why can't Ukraine retaliate for kind back to the aggressor?
They have at times striking at the airfields where these missiles are launched from, because they're usually mounted onto a strategic bomber and then launched from there. And we have seen them do that several times. So to answer that question, they have, and it has been successful on a couple of occasions. So with that, I hope that answers that question. We are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Vito Lucina, who says, if Russia is the successor to USSR, will Belarus be the successor to Russia when it falls?
One can only dream of a goofy guy like Lukashenko being in charge of both Belarus and Russia. Now that would be something. And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well with just my laugh. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a super chat once again. This one is from Carlo Matola, who puts in a 25 RON and says, you guys are invited to stay at my farm near Kharkiv after our victory.
And I have to figure out what a RON is. RON currency.
It's not done, it's run.
It's a Romanian lieu in lieu of the events that have happened. And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I will make sure to try and check out that farm. Dox yourself. I'm just kidding. Don't dox yourself. But where's that farm? Don't tell us. I'm just kidding. Do not tell us. But still, thank you so much once again for all the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we may take you up on the offer. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David Malone, who says Ukraine might run out of weapons, according to Al Jazeera today. If they do, then Russia will accomplish their goal.
Al Jazeera, what do they know? Al Jazeera don't know nothing. But I do thank you for bringing that up. Of course, the West is always supplying them with weapons, a large amount of them, and hopefully they can keep it up, because from what we've heard from Ukrainian armed forces is that they're not doing that bad. And I don't know where Al Jazeera would get that statement or some figures backing that up. This kind of sounds like hearsay to me. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Fairley, who says, any word on those Swedish CV-90 IFVs they said they would give to Ukraine?
We did see that they were transported into Poland. We heard that they may have been transported into Ukraine, but we've never seen any proof to show that they've gotten there. So for now, as far as we know, they're still in Poland, most likely at a training field somewhere. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Miss Disa, who says Ukraine lost at least 3 S-300 air defense systems from drone strikes. And any update, and why were they unprotected?
It appears that one of them was actually damaged before it was even hit. We saw some holes in the missile silo, which shows that that one may have been out of operation already. It may have actually been a captured S-300 that they were moving for repairs and then was destroyed. I don't really know on that one in particular. But the other reason that they may be making it through is that those drones are really hard to detect. They are so small, a radar wouldn't really pick them up. They'd usually try to filter them out as background noise, and so they have to be visually sighted and then shot down by a ground crew. And we don't really see that often on either side. So drones like that can usually make it through with somewhat relative ease. And then once they get towards their target, it's really a matter of being able to shoot them down in that last minute than anything else. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well from Miss Disa, an absolute channel legend. Been around forever, actually, as far as I can recall. And thank you for being an old guard in the Lee Spring Army and being here tonight and asking a really good question, actually. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And also, before we get to that, here's something really interesting that's happening right now. The UK Maritime Agency says that there's a vessel under attack south of Yemen. It looks like they're in a shootout with maybe pirates. They're not really sure who it is yet, but there's people attacking the vessel. They're firing at it, and apparently they're in an all-out brawl.
Interesting. I wonder what's going on down there.
Yeah, I wonder. There's not much details. It looks like it just came out.
Interesting. So with that, we'll keep that in mind for tomorrow's news. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Deeds Millar, who says, what's the chances magic could happen and we could see the attackums included in the spring showdown?
The chances are low, but they're not absolute zero. I'd say probably 15%. 15% probability of it happening. They could have been delivered, and we never heard an announcement of it. So I would say it's unlikely, but keep your hopes up a little bit. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And we are on to Carlo Matola.
And Carlo Matola, let's see. Carlo Matola puts in another 25 RON and says Starovikova, south of Kharkiv, north of Krasnograd. We fear no one.
And let's check that out.
And also shout out to both of these testicles for putting in a 1.
He's back. He's back. Staro Verovka, Kharkiv Oblast. So somewhere around here, near this pit. Let's see, south of Kharkiv, north of Krasnograd. So this is where it is. This is where the farm would be. That is cool. It's like a little village. Let's check it out. There's no street view. Dang it. Well, sadly, no street view. Maybe some pictures. That looks like the train station. I think this is the train station. It is the train station. Let's see. And what else do we have? The train station again. There's the village. That actually looks really cool. That is actually not a bad looking place. Kind of looks like southeast England. Let's see here. Train station. A lot of pictures of the train station. And unholy amount. And then we have the pit. Is this a sand pit? I think it might be a sand pit. That's really cool. And more pictures of the train station. pretty cool, and I thank you for the support and sharing where the farm is. He does not fear anyone. He truly doesn't. I would. But with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. We are on. Oh yeah, we already recognize both of these testicles, and I thank you so much once again for the support. Both of these testicles, based off of a joke on this channel that was said, I think maybe 2 months ago or so.
Yes.
And the joke still stands. And I thank you so much for the support and helping us to keep this thing running, because every little bit counts in helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to Steve McKinnon, who says, assuming Russia gets something out of this war, will that set a precedent for nuclear nations? For example, if you're nuclear, you can invade and annex neighbor countries.
It's possible that it could. And that's something that's kind of a little scary, because if the Russians do that and we do not step in, then that means the Chinese are going to be racing to use their nukes to bend anyone around them to their will, and then that means we'll probably also start doing that as well as the United States, because we'll really be left with no other choice. So that is a real precedent that could be laid out if the Russians did use nukes to get their way in this war and we didn't step in and stop it. We could start looking at a world where nukes are the determining factor on whether you remain an independent country or whether you're able to beat up others. And so with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. And it is the end of tonight's stream at a whole 3 hours long. It's been quite a lengthy stream tonight. And some of y'all may have actually noticed that our streams have gotten 30 minutes shorter. The reason why we've been doing that is because we've been trying to make the streams a little bit shorter, so that way they're a little bit easier to watch in a way. So we've actually cut a whole 30 minutes off, either through making the polls a little bit quicker to answer, or by making sure to not add as much, I guess you could say, talking in the news. I hope y'all been enjoying that. We've been doing that for, I think, about a week at this point, and this is probably going to be the new way to do it, because we also been, you know, kind of running out of steam in the background, and that shaving off a good 30 minutes off the stream has actually been helping us out a lot with fatigue. So with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I hope y'all did enjoy. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It does help this channel to keep on growing. And we're at 1,921 likes. If this was a year, that means that we're in the Gilded... No, we're not in the Gilded Age. We're in the post-World War I era, when things are good. The stock market hasn't crashed yet. If you want the stock market to crash and for the stream to enter the Great Depression, go ahead and bump up the likes by about another 5 or so. Another 5 or 6 of them will be in the Great Depression then. But with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini. And thank you all once again for watching, and good night.
And good night, love Ukraine, and peep the Twitter. It's good for your health.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу.